What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Lou Reviews. I'm your host, Luis Jimenez. Man, today we're going to have a really long show. We've got a fully packed show. We've got so much to talk about, but also so much to listen to. We're going to go through the whole 2-hour hearing that Congress had here a few days ago. I've been so busy, I have not been able to cover it. But it's kind of a good thing because I've been able to sit back and watch how not only the community has reacted to these drones over Jersey, but how the news has reacted to the drones over Jersey, but how lawmakers have reacted to the drones over Jerseys, how journalists have reacted to drones over Jersey. And it dawned on me that, again, if you're a fan of this show, and if you've been watching this show, especially since the very beginning, and you've seen the journey in the path, for 2 years, more than 2 years, this goes back to the UCR days we were talking about this stuff. We have been highlighting and talking about drones and drone incursions and drone swarms and how drones were going to be a big discussion point in the coming years, especially, God forbid, if there's a terrorist attack. And we've gotten I wouldn't say next closest thing to that, but it's definitely gotten the attention of everyone. And I'm going to also highlight the vast differences between when Congress is talking about space aliens versus an actual national security threat. And if space aliens was an actual national security threat, you would see it the way you're seeing it today. But I think it speaks even more loudly in the videos and the presentations that we're going to watch today. Before we get started, welcome everyone to the show. This is going to be like a 4-hour show. Just FYI, we'll probably take a break in the middle. We'll come back and then we'll talk about everything that was said and what it means going forward. And, I've gotten to the, I realized, okay, shit, we've passed the threshold. We've passed the lexicon on this conversation. Drones are now going to be a big issue. If the debates were still happening today, this would be the first thing discussed in a debate, without a doubt. But I digress. Let me just say hello to everybody who's here. Breeder Syndicate, what's up, dude? What's up, Pinzer Lou? My wonderful mod, Simon Fly, Compliziert, Red Death. There have been no attacks. We're going to talk about that. Supposed attacks from these drones. I just got the preface. We are going to separate the things Chupacabra and Red Panda say about this discussion versus the things that are going to be said here. We're not going to be spreading rumors and bullshit. We're going to be parsing through all of this hysteria. For the most part of this, it's hysteria. But there also might be a very, very real issue here. Anyway, I keep wanting to talk about this because there's so much to talk about. But hello, everyone. Okay, Bobby Broadway. Everyone, thank you for being here. So let's go ahead and switch to our Lou Reviews setup here. And again, I'm gonna play this House committee hearing on the risk of flying drones. We're gonna listen to the questions. I'll be commenting on it here sort of in real time, but I'm going to just let it play through and try not to stop it because, again, this is 2 hours. But I also feel like this is really important because we have to establish what is real versus what is bullshit. What is lore building versus what are the facts? And so much so that I changed the logo of the show. As you'll notice, it says Lou reviews drones first, UAPs, UFOs, and news about this stuff, because this is going to be a big discussion going forward. And the UFO community is going to try, I mean, they've been trying like hell for the last week to connect these drone sightings to space aliens. And there is zero connection whatsoever. Everything seems to be on the terrestrial level, but there does seem to be some sort of advanced tech being shown here. But who does it belong to? We'll get into this stuff. I'm so excited about today's show because I think, again, like the beautiful thing about Lou Reviews is based on new information, we always pivot. And because this discussion has never been on the tip of every American and lawmaker in our country, it's been me just for the last 2 years, and people like Stephen Greenstreet and people like John Greenwald and people like Simon Fly and people like, Matt, Breeder Syndicate here. Like there's so many people. I think of Steve Long. I think of Paranormal Chris. I think of Jeremy McGowan, especially Jeremy McGowan. He was the first person to bring this drone issue and tech to our show. That drone that he built 5, 6, 7 years ago, that is a pretty damn advanced drone today. He showed us that live on on my show. So drones have always been part of this discussion. And when you say drone, people think, a Mavic 2 or something. No. The tech of drones is so vast. There's so many variations. There's so many things you can do. There's so many things you get attached. There's so many instruments you could put on there. There's so many applications for drone swarms and just drones plural. Like a small drone swarm of bigger drones. The stuff that's coming down the future. Someone put it to me like this: besides just Amazon delivery through a drone, which is coming, soon you will be able to purchase let's say you want to paint your home. You can purchase a paint color for your home. A swarm of drones will come out to your house with that color, measure, place themselves around the house perfectly, and in literally one spray, your house is done. And these are micro drones that would be doing this. Without any tape, without any contractor, without any of that stuff. It's literally, these drones would have enough to spray one thing, and then you come back and then you spray a second coat, and that's what's coming. That's the stuff that's coming. And to me, that's going to be a really fun conversation to follow, especially now that everybody is caught up to the fact that we have a fucking drone problem. We have a big drone problem. And again, we're not talking about Mavic 2s and little personal drones and Walmart drones or Amazon drones. We're talking about really sophisticated drones and really simple drones that just do one task. Some of these drones don't need operators. They carry out tasks on their own. It's coming. And that's the wave that I mistook for the UFO thing. And again, we'll talk about this more toward the end. Let's go ahead and just play this. Again, guys, thanks for being here. Again, this is going to be a long show if you're just tuning in right now. I'm going to be live by the end. I know, dude. It's going to be a long one. But I think this is important. For me, this is important. This is going to be like one of the cornerstones episodes for as far as what we do going forward. And it's important to really cement the fact that this is not alien technology. It never has been. And people will yell, well, what about the things in the 40s, Lou? Yeah, there were new planes that was top secret that didn't get unveiled for 20 years flying around in the sky at that time. There were massive balloon systems that were listening devices for nuclear fallout and testing. So yeah, there's always been weird shit in the sky that the military, especially since the 1940s, has been putting in the sky and using the UFO thing as an excuse. The difference today is everybody's got a fucking high definition camera in their phone. So people can take pictures and video, and it's a lot different today. It's a lot harder to be like, it might be space aliens. Anyway, let's do this.
Threat of unmanned aerial systems, more commonly known as UASs or drones. We will hear from two panels today, and our first panel consists of three witnesses from the federal government. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all to today's important hearing on the threats posed by unmanned aircraft or aerial systems, UASs or drones, and the threat to U.S. national security and the policy solutions that could mitigate these risks. Before we begin, I'd like to personally recognize two individuals, Congressman Dan Bishop and Congressman Anthony D'Esposito, for their service to this subcommittee and to our nation, and I wish them well in their future endeavors. As we sit here today, we are at a critical juncture in the evolution of military technology, commercial innovation, and cybersecurity. UASs have become a transformative force. They've been used in countless positive ways that include revolutionizing many industries like agriculture, logistics, film production, and others, while also improving capabilities for humanitarian relief and law enforcement. However, as with any powerful technology, UAS have also introduced significant security challenges. In recent years, the proliferation of UAS, both domestically and abroad, has raised serious concerns regarding their potential misuse and criminal activities, espionage, and more alarmingly, in threats to U.S. national security. From foreign adversaries seeking to exploit UAS for surveillance and intelligence gathering, to the growing risk of UAS being weaponized to attack critical infrastructure, sports stadiums, our vulnerabilities are clear.
Where have we heard that
the
before?
Risk posed by commercial and military-grade UAS in the hands of rogue states, non-state actors, terrorist organizations, and even individuals cannot be overstated. There have already been several troubling incidents where UAS have been used to penetrate airspace, compromising not only our national security but public safety. Threats to our homeland can also derive from the manufacturing of products that Americans frequently use. A glaring example is the widespread use of drones manufactured by Dajiang Innovations, DJI, a Chinese company whose products are deeply embedded in U.S. industries and critical sectors. These systems raise national security concerns, including risk of unauthorized data access and systemic vulnerabilities. Multiple U.S. departments and agencies have already admonished against or banned the procurement of certain UAS originating in the People's Republic of China in recognitions of the threats that they pose. Just this past October, reports indicated that CBP is blocking the importation of some UAS produced by DJI due to potential violations of the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which is a law that prohibits the importation of goods into the U.S. produced in whole or in part with forced labor out of the PRC. We must work to protect U.S. communications equipment while strengthening U.S. supply chains by ensuring foreign manufactured technologies that pose security threats cannot operate in U.S. networks. The threats posed by UAS continues to present challenges. The U.S. border is one of the most significant vulnerabilities when it comes to this type of threat. UAS have already been used to circumvent traditional border security measures such as fences, walls, and surveillance towers. UAS have been used to smuggle drugs and weapons across the border and surveil CBP locations for human smugglers to then evade detection. CBP officials have consistently raised concerns that Mexican narco-terrorist gangs are using weaponized UAS only a short distance from the U.S. border, and in many cases operating inside the United States. UAS also pose a significant threat to critical infrastructure, including power grids, oil refineries, airports, water treatment plants, and transportation systems. A single UAS carrying explosives could potentially cause widespread damage, interrupt services, and result in significant economic loss to our homeland. Additionally, recent events illustrate the diverse roles UAS have played in both state-on-state conflict and asymmetric engagements, such as those in Ukraine and Israel, as well as their use in potential intelligence gathering operations near sensitive military installations at home and abroad. We must learn from these conflicts to help protect our homeland security. DHS and DOJ were given counter-UHS authorities as part of the Preventing Emerging Threats Act of 2018, which became law as part of the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2018. The current authorities provided under the act are set to expire on December 20th, 2024, just 1 week from now. Over the past years, DHS and DOJ have used these authorities to engage in activities to protect covered facilities and assets against credible threats posed by UAS, notwithstanding laws such as the Wiretap Act or the Aircraft Sabotage Act that could otherwise limit such activities. It's imperative that we not only make sure that the current authorities are extended to protect our national security, but also work together to responsibly reform the current legal authorities that provide federal agencies with critical tools to mitigate credible threats posed by UAS. I'd like to applaud Chairman Green, as well as Ranking Member Thompson, for their bipartisan work alongside members on T&I and Judiciary for introducing H.R. 8610, the Counter-UAS Authority Security, Safety, and Reauthorization Act of 2024. This legislation will renew and reform current counter-UAS legal authorities. The legislation will also modify and improve counter-UAS authorities of the Federal Aviation Administration, enhance important protections for the civil liberties of Americans using UAS in a legal and responsible manner, and strengthen public safety in communities throughout this nation.
I'm fucking droning here. I'm droning here. Sorry, I just had to read that comment.
For instance, the legislation requires DHS to establish a counter-UAS mitigation pilot program under which selected state and covered law enforcement agencies may operate approved counter-UAS mitigation systems and mitigate unauthorized UAS operations on behalf of covered entities at a number of sites each. Today, we're going to hear from experts in the fields of national security, law enforcement, defense, and technology who will provide insights into the threats posed by the UAS and family of systems to our homeland and efforts to address these challenges. And I just want to say, if you're watching the news today, we've had several incidents that have occurred and are occurring right now in places like New Jersey. Recently, we had an incident at Langley Air Force Base.
Only the news, the local news has been reporting this.
Address many topics. Maybe we don't have all the answers that come out of this hearing, but my hope is that by having this hearing, by asking both the government and non-governmental panel, that we can get to the right questions, and we can, if we don't have the right policies in place, then let's get those policies in place. If we do, and the authorities are there, then let's figure out what we can continue to do to keep our homeland safe. There's many aspects of this, but the most important aspect is the safety and the security of every American citizen and the life that we live here. I look forward to hearing from our distinguished panels today and working in a bipartisan manner. I now recognize the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Counterterrorism, Law Enforcement, and Intelligence, the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner, for his opening statement.
Well, I thank Chairman Pfluger for calling this important hearing and all of my colleagues for participating. The proliferation of unmanned aircraft systems has created a technological arms race between criminals who use UAS technology to plot acts of terror, traffic fentanyl and other illegal substances, and invade the privacy of ordinary Americans, and law enforcement agencies tasked with keeping our homeland safe. Both the criminals and law enforcement agencies are innovating at a rapid rate, and it is important that the federal government keep up. The time has come for Congress to expand the authority of federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies to better utilize monitoring, tracking, and signal jamming technologies to protect critical areas, including our borders, large public events, prisons, and sensitive government facilities, while also ensuring the civil liberties of drone operators. This is the goal of H.R. 8610, the Counter-UAS Authority Security, Safety, and Reauthorization Act, authored by Chairman Green and Ranking Member Thompson, which I am proud to have co-sponsored. For years, DHS, DOJ, and other agencies have briefed this committee on the threats posed by malicious and authorized UAS. We have seen drones shot down at airports in this country and around the world. Major sporting events have been interrupted with players rushed from the field when unauthorized drones with unknown motives entered restricted airspace. And just a few weeks ago, the FBI arrested a white supremacist in Tennessee who plan to use a drone with an explosive payload to attack a power grid.
Okay, like, didn't hear that one. Didn't hear that one on the major news. Wow. Like, and that's just a local white supremacist. Damn, dude. This is going to be a crazy time.
However, it must also be said that drones are useful tools for many occupations and hobbyists. They can be useful for search and rescue, navigation, agriculture, and more. And these positive aspects remind us that we must take a measured approach to the issue. I look forward to hearing from today's witnesses about how best to balance the benefits and risks of UAS. Moreover, I hope that this hearing will help lay additional groundwork for getting H.R. 8610 over the finish line. Thank you to our witnesses for being here today. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. The chair now recognizes the chairman of the Subcommittee on Transportation and Maritime Security, the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Jimenez, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today,
not related. He also, look at this picture, okay? Look how many chairs are taken in this meeting. Not too many empty ones here, and look how many staffers there are in the back. Pretty damn interesting. And then look how many different staffers and people are starting to fill in here in the front. And we get a couple of shots here in the beginning where it's kind of empty, but by the end of this, it's packed. It's packed. And that's the difference. Just from like a picture says 1,000 words. And there's nobody getting up and going to get a lunch or a bite to eat or, you know, go somewhere else and never come back. Like, there's none of that with this hearing.
Today we're examining the growing threats posed by unmanned aerial systems, UASs, or drones, and exploring solutions to better protect our homeland from this evolving technology. The popularity and accessibility of drones have skyrocketed in recent years. Today, there are more than 880,000 registered drone operators in the United States, with countless other operating drones without proper registration or training. While many of these operators use drones for legitimate purposes, recreational, commercial, or otherwise, there is an undeniable threat from those who misuse this technology either through ignorance of the rules and regulations or with malicious intent. Uninformed operators can inadvertently disrupt air traffic or encroach on sensitive areas, creating safety risks that strain our law enforcement and the aviation systems. While uninformed operators present a risk, their potential impact is negligible compared to the dangers posed by nefarious actors with malicious intent. Nefarious actors, including transnational criminal organizations, terrorists, and foreign adversaries, can exploit drones to evade traditional security measures, gather intelligence, smuggle contraband, disrupt transportation systems, or even launch attacks on our homeland. The threat from nefarious actors is both real and escalating. Along our borders, drones are increasingly employed by cartels to smuggle drugs and surveil law enforcement operations. We must consider all appropriate actions to ensure that foreign adversaries like the Chinese Communist Party are not using drones under the guise of legitimate activities to relay sensitive information back to China or other entities that seek to harm the United States. Critical infrastructure such as airports, power plants, and ports face growing risks from rogue drones capable of conducting surveillance, causing disruptions, or carrying out acts of sabotage. These risks are not hypothetical. Since 2021, the Transportation Security Administration has documented nearly 2,000 drone sightings near U.S. airports, with major airports experiencing drone incursions almost daily. Furthermore, between 2021 and 2022, the FBI reported 235 incidents of suspicious drone flights at or near chemical plants in Louisiana. Similar UAS activity is also observed at oil storage facilities in Oklahoma and natural gas facilities in Texas, highlighting the growing threat to critical energy infrastructure. Beyond our borders, the conflict in Ukraine has highlighted the weaponization of drones in modern warfare. Both sides have employed drones for reconnaissance, targeting, and direct attacks, underscoring the ability to use drones to transform the dynamics of conflict. These lessons, both from domestic incidents and international conflicts, should serve as a wake-up call for us to bolster our defenses against the misuse of drones within the United States. Looking ahead, the stakes will only continue to rise, with major global events such as the 2026 FIFA World Cup, of which many games will be played in my hometown of Miami, and the 2028 Summer Olympics coming to the United States. We must be ready to confront these threats to safeguard critical infrastructure and ensure the safety of travelers, participants, and spectators. We have a responsibility to defend against drone threats, and the need for action is clear. We must act swiftly. Today's hearing is an opportunity to better understand the full scope of the challenges posed by drones and to explore innovative solutions to mitigate these risks. I want to thank my colleague from Texas, Representative Pfluger, as well as my colleagues from the Subcommittee on Counterterrorism, Law Enforcement, and Intelligence for partnering with us to host this important hearing. Thank you to our witnesses, Deputy Executive Assistant Commissioner Jones, Deputy Assistant Attorney General Wiegman, and Assistant Director Wheeler for appearing before the subcommittees. I look forward to hearing about how we can better.
And this guy has got a serious interest in making sure that the World Cup in Miami doesn't turn into a nightmare. Like, this is what they're talking about. And again, like, we do not have the systems in place to cover this.
Holding today's hearing, as well as to our witnesses for joining us. Over the past few years, the use of unmanned aerial systems, also known as drones, has become common across a wide range of applications. Drones have become increasingly affordable and useful within agriculture, law enforcement, search and rescue, photography, and other industries. However, as the airspace becomes more and more crowded with unmanned aircraft, we must ensure the government is prepared and empowered to protect the safety and security of U.S. critical infrastructure and the American public. In 2018, Congress enacted initial authorities for the executive branch to begin testing and operating counter-drone technologies, also known as CUAS technologies. Those authorities have kickstarted the interagency coordination and technology development needed to carry out such a complex effort, but the authorities remain unlimited. Authorities remain limited and have relied on one short-term extension after another. I hope Congress will act early next year to advance legislation to extend and expand these authorities. As we do so, we must ensure the government's counter-drone activities appropriately protect privacy and civil liberties and do not have unintended impacts on the safety of the national airspace. As ranking member of the Transportation and Maritime Security Subcommittee, I am especially interested in making sure airports are protected from threats posed by drones. Already, we have seen major airports shut down due to errant drones causing significant delays. Introducing new technologies that affect radio signals is especially sensitive within the airport environment and other urban environment. So we must ensure such technologies are carefully tested. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses today about how Congress can push our counter-drone efforts into a new phase in a measured yet meaningful manner. Again, I thank our witnesses and my colleagues, and I yield back.
Other members of the committee are reminded.
I love the vast difference between the UAP caucus of morons and these lawmakers. I mean, it's clear the difference, but I wait till we get to their questions.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you will give before the Committee on Homeland Security of the United States of House of Representatives will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. Thank you. Let the record reflect that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. I'll now introduce the witnesses. Mr. Keith Jones is the Deputy Executive Assistant Commissioner for Air and Marine Operations. He has over 32 years of law enforcement experience. Notably, he has helped found the San Diego Sector's Border Patrol Search, Trauma, and Rescue Team and was the principal primary driver of its national expansion. Mr. Robert Wheeler Jr. serves as the Assistant Director of the FBI's Critical Incident Response Group. His responsibilities include providing expertise in crisis management, negotiations, hazardous devices and tactical operations, behavioral assessment, surveillance, and aviation. He joined the division in July of this year. And Mr. Bragg Wigman serves as the Deputy Assistant Attorney General for National Security at the U.S. Department of Justice. He has spent his career as a government attorney with legal experience at the Department of Defense, Department of State,
So a lawyer.
and at the National Security Council. We thank all of you for being here today. We will now begin with opening statements.
Lawyer,
I know that you've
FBI,
submitted written statements as
and a
well,
cop.
and thank you for that. And if you'll please
Border cop.
adhere to the 5-minute summary of your statements. We'll start with Mr. Jones. You're now recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Chairman Pfluger, Ranking Member Magaziner, Chairman Jimenez, and Ranking Member Tanadar, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. It's an honor here to be here today on behalf of U.S. Customs and Border Protection to discuss the CBP authorities and capabilities dedicated to countering threats posed by the malicious use of unmanned aircraft systems, commonly called UAS.
Mr. Jones does
Throughout
look
my 33-year career in border
like a
security,
Dick
first with
Tracy
U.S.
character.
Border Patrol and now Air and Marine Operations, I've witnessed transnational criminal organizations, or TCOs, and other malicious actors leveraging technology to circumvent U.S. law enforcement. In recent years, I've devoted significant time to understanding the increasing UAS threat to border security and coordinating CBP's strategic response. Air and Marine Operations is CBP's executive agent for counter-UAS operations. We work alongside our U.S. Border Patrol and Office of Field Operation counterparts to detect, track, and mitigate the threat of these aircraft along our borders. We also collaborate with our DOJ and FBI partners on investigations, as well as CBP Innovation, the DHS Science and Technology Directorate, Department of Defense, private industry, to identify technologies that can improve our mitigation and domain awareness capabilities. I'd like to emphasize 3 important aspects of this subject today. First, the current state of UAS threats to border security. Second, how our critical authorities enable us to respond. And finally, the importance of improving CBP's domain awareness capabilities and technology to detect and mitigate UAS threats. First, UAS activity along the border is increasing rapidly. During a recent 6-week period, CBP sensors reported more than
Thank you,
6,900
Blizzard, for
drone
the
flights
251
within close
donation.
proximity of our borders.
As law
It is these flights,
enforcement.
particularly those in areas of high illicit activity, that present the greatest threat to the safety of CBP's frontline personnel, pose a serious collision risk to our crewed aircraft, and diminish the effectiveness of our border security operations. Although intent cannot be derived from border proximity alone, through our intelligence processes, CBP has associated a large percent of these drone flights with nefarious activities on the ground. TCOs have fully integrated UAS technology into their operations.
Is that the commander
Of
from
most
the
concern
movie
to CBP
Small
is the wide use
Soldiers?
of drones to conduct
from the late
reconnaissance
90s.
of CBP law enforcement personnel, their locations,
Voiced by
and their
Tommy
activities.
Lee Jones.
This
Is that
technology
Tommy
enables
Lee
smugglers
Jones?
to guide non-citizens or transport
Pretty
contraband
funny.
across the border without encountering any law enforcement. Additionally, to a lesser extent, TCOs have
Shoulder
used drones
pads are
to fly
definitely
contraband over the
back.
border. And most drones have limited payload capacity. An average recreational drone can carry only a
cop.
few pounds, but the potential risk is still significant. A few pounds of narcotics, specifically fentanyl, or a few pounds of explosive could cause serious harm. The increasing use of UAS brings me to my second point. The authorities provided by Congress through the Preventing Emerging Threats Act are essential for CBP to detect and counter this serious threat. In accordance with the Act, DHS policy guidance and internal policy, CBP conducts counter-UAS operations in 10 high-risk sectors along the southwest and northern border, as authorized by the DHS Secretary. Our operations target specific threats to covered facilities or assets while safeguarding privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties. Obtaining authorization to implement counter-UAS operations is a rigorous and precise process. It requires a credible threat determination based on extensive analysis and evidence, as well as correlation with actionable law enforcement information. Using our authorities and targeted approach, CBP mitigated 86 UAS threats at the border in fiscal year 2023 and 60 in FY24. CBP also mitigated 16 UAS as Special Event Assessment Rating, or SEER, events in FY 2023 and 49 in FY 24. CBP has mitigated 3 unmanned aircraft systems so far in FY 25. Finally, TCOs are rapidly obtaining larger, more maneuverable drones with a higher capacity for payloads and the ability to fly longer, higher, and farther. We're also tracking the threat of drones used for kinetic attacks with payloads of explosives, firearms, or weapons of mass destruction. We're already seeing drug cartels in Mexico use drones to attack the military, police, and their rivals. This means CBP needs these critical authorities, advanced technology to maintain the strategic advantage and continued commitment to achieving persistent domain awareness. CBP is dedicated to our security mission, and with your support, we will continue to counter this rapidly evolving threat and expand our risk-based implementation of counter-UAS operations along the border. Thank you for the opportunity to appear today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. The chair now recognizes Mr. Wheeler for his opening statement of 5 minutes.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chairman Pfluger, Chairman Jimenez, Ranking Member Magaziner, and Ranking Member Tanadar, other distinguished members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to testify on behalf of the FBI. I currently serve as the Assistant Director of our Critical Incident Response Group in Quantico, Virginia. I've done that since July, as you've mentioned. In that capacity, I lead the FBI's efforts regarding both our pre-crisis planning and response to critical incidents and major investigations, which includes responsibility for our counter-unmanned aircraft program. As UAS use continues to rapidly grow among the public, commercial, and military and law enforcement sectors, this technology also lends itself to increased malicious use by state, non-state, and lone actors, as you know. This technology poses some unique security challenges for us. Just this year alone, we've seen concerning increase in the use of UAS in the commission of crimes with the intent to cause injury to U.S. persons on U.S. soil. A Chinese national recently pled guilty to 2 misdemeanor counts for using a UAS to conduct espionage at a U.S. naval facility in January. We believe UAS are being flown for similar purposes over sensitive facilities across the United States. Just last month, the subject was arrested and charged in Tennessee for attempting to use a UAS with an explosive device to destroy an energy facility. That is the same case mentioned by the ranking member. That subject was driven by an ideology to disrupt society through the collapse of the national power grid. Those are 2 examples of the evolving ways that UAS are being used to harm us and our interests. With the enactment of the 2018 Preventing Emergency Threats Act, the FBI was granted the authority necessary to mitigate a range of UAS threats in the protection of special events, emergency response, federal investigations, personnel, and facilities. Specifically, the legislation authorizes DOJ and our partners at DHS to conduct counter-UAS operations in limited circumstances to identify, track, and mitigate credible threats. I'd stress the importance for reauthorization
Muted. Damn it, I am muted. I hit the button here. That was my fault. So yes, this is a great question. Ben Overrich asks. He asks, are UAS, UAV, and drone all the same thing? Yes. UAS is an unmanned aerial system. UAV is an unmanned aerial vehicle, and a drone is a drone. So, yes, they are basically all the same things. I meant to mention that at the top, just in case people didn't know what the acronym UAS meant. But just so you know, these acronyms have been used for decades, 4 or 5 decades plus. Decades. Unmanned aerial vehicles and unmanned aerial systems have been used by our military. It goes back to the 40s, 50s. You know, some of our very first planes were remote controlled, and those classify as an unmanned aerial system. So we've been playing with this tech for a long time. glad I am back. Oh, by the way, I switched this mic so I can't touch the mute button here. And instead I muted myself through the board. Classic, Lou. Classic. I got to mute myself at least once during the fucking show. It's just something I have to do it. I have to do it. But I appreciate all of you. Sparky Pilot just got back for this show, and 5 minutes into the show, I muted myself. All right, let's go.
Of the counter-UAS authorities, as you know, expire December 20th. Failure to extend the authorities beyond then would cause significant impacts on our ability to protect the public.
That's interesting. I'm sorry, I just have to hear that one more time.
Credible threats. I'd stress the importance for reauthorization of the counter-UAS authorities, as you know, expire December 20th.
Wow, the timing of these drones is very interesting. If that's the case, if this funding for the protection of the United States through this, unmanned aerial drones legislation, safety legislation, after the 20th, hey, something happens. We told you to renew the funding for this. That's the first time I caught that. I've watched parts of this. I haven't been able to watch the whole thing, so I'm literally listening to this in real time with you guys, and that is a very interesting moment right there, because I did not know that legislation expires on the 20th, and this meeting in part is getting Congress to try and reauthorize that legislation so they can make sure that this drone thing is not an issue. The timing of it is really convenient. The timing of the report of these drones over Jersey is very convenient to the ending of this legislation. Man, oh man, that would be a really shady, shitty, fucked up way to continue funding. Either way, I think that funding needs to continue, but why not just tell the American people what's really going on instead of possibly faking a drone invasion over the skies of Jersey, or at least fueling the fire to what I think is really just hysteria. I don't know, but the timing of that is interesting. You can't deny that. I don't have any evidence to connect those two things, but that is very interesting. I'm sorry, that's worth stopping this and listening to again.
Beyond then would cause significant impacts on our ability to protect the public.
Yeah, see,
if
you don't give us this money, it's going to seriously impact our ability to protect you. It's interesting.
It's also extremely important. Our experience has taught us that short-term extensions to counter-UAS authority effectively prevent the Bureau and our partners from budgeting and staffing in ways which would allow us to execute a long-term strategy. We know that Congress is considering extensions of 5 years or more, and we thank you for that consideration. The FBI strongly supports pursuing expanded counter-UAS authorities for state, local, tribal, and territorial partners as robustly and swiftly as prudently possible. SLTT partners have repeatedly informed us that existing counter-UAS authorities are inadequate. Since our counter-UAS authority was granted in 2019, the FBI has adopted 69 operational missions using this authority and provided limited support to 121 other events. We've detected over 1,000 UAS in violation of federal law during these missions. One example, at the Boston Marathon this past April, our team mitigated a UAS threat, which resulted in the capture and prosecution of a subject. The FBI cannot alone protect the over 40,000 Special Event Assessment Rating, or SEER, events annually held in the U.S., along with the countless other requests for counter-UAS support at mass gatherings. The use of counter-UAS to protect against these situations is crucial and can only be fully addressed by expanding the capability to include our state and local partners. In closing, we remain committed to protecting Americans by countering the malicious use of this technology. The reauthorization or long-term extension of this legislation is essential to continue our mission in combating the evolving threat. And we look forward to working with you and establishing
that funding
sustainable strategies to mitigate the threat going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. The chair now recognizes Mr. Weigman for his opening statement.
Okay, fine. You want that money? You're gonna have to give us a little more.
Good afternoon,
what are
Chairman
these
Pfluger,
things?
Chairman Jimenez, Ranking Member Magaziner, Ranking Member Tanadar,
Here's the lawyer.
and other distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the Department of Justice. As my colleagues have just said, we are committed to continuing to work hard to protect the American people from the threat of illicit drone use. But to do so most effectively, we need additional legal authority. As drones become more and more prevalent in our airspace, merely continuing with our current authorities is insufficient to address the current scale of the threat.
So we need more
More
money,
than 2 years
and we
ago,
need
I
more
and others
legal
from
authority.
DHS and the FAA testified before a Senate committee about this growing threat and the need for a more durable and significantly expanded legal framework. Since that time, the Congress has provided extensions of existing counter-drone authority while considering how best to expand it. We are very grateful that both the House and the Senate continue to agree that this authority must not lapse. The Department is eager to share with you the lessons gained from our experience to help reach consensus about how much and in what way to expand the existing law. Now, the reason we need legal authority is that without it, use of the most effective types of drone detection and counter-drone technologies could violate criminal laws, including those that prohibit destroying or disabling aircraft in flight and intercepting signals and communications. As has just been said, our current authorities will lapse within the next 10 days unless reauthorized. So our first priority is for Congress to reauthorize the existing law. But I know that this committee and others have also been working on legislation to go well beyond that. And we are eager to work with Congress on a bill that will help keep the American people safe. Now, as described in our written testimony, the two most important issues for us are, number one, broadening the types of sites that law enforcement can protect from nefarious and suspicious drone uses. So, for example, to cover, as was mentioned in the opening statements, airports and critical infrastructure like power plants and chemical facilities. So we need to expand the types of sites that can be protected. And then number two, as my colleague from the FBI just mentioned, it's about empowering state and local law enforcement and operators of critical infrastructure to engage in counter-drone efforts themselves nationwide. This is not a job the federal government can do alone. The FBI can only cover a tiny fraction, less than half of 1%, of the tens of thousands of events throughout the country each year that might need counter-drone support to protect public safety. So the demand for protection across the country just vastly exceeds available federal resources. To be clear, this activity can and must be done while safeguarding Americans' privacy and civil liberties. The technologies that we employ typically detect only communications being passed between the operator's controller and the drone to detect its activities, to direct its activities. They do not extract text messages, email, or internet search histories from phones or tablets used to control drones, nor do they allow law enforcement to listen to voice calls. We collect information such as the drone vendor and model, the drone and controlling device serial number, the geolocation of the drone, the location of the controller, and the most recent takeoff and home location. This is very much like the information required to be broadcast by manned aircraft, and which is now required under FAA's remote ID regulation to be broadcast by drones as well. And we use this information to further investigate when a crime involving a drone is suspected. As required in current law, DOJ would continue to have guidance that contains explicit protections for privacy and civil liberties and associated training. And state and local law enforcement, if empowered to engage in this activity, would be required to adhere to the same rules. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today. I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Okay, so before we get to those questions real quick, I want to address some things. Yes, everybody hit the like and subscribe button, definitely. Do one even better, share the show. Share the show. And I want to also hit this one. Transcendental light. Lou, that doesn't explain the drones we have had over the UK. It started off in the UK and now is in the USA and other countries. It does. And I mean, you're one of our allies. There's a lot of American military bases over the UK. So we're going to get into what I think these drones are after these questions and after this presentation in Congress. But again, the timing of this, what this is for, and how many attorneys and how many people in the FBI, I wonder who all these people are here in the back that are piling in to make sure that this legislation gets re-green lit. And now they're asking for more funding and more authority and more places to cover it. Man, wow, what's the budget? What is the budget that the American people have to spend on this? And at what point, like, where's all this money going? I want to know what the budget is right now. What was the budget for the last piece of legislation that is going to expire on the 20th of December? What was the budget for that? And if you're only covering less than half of 1% of all of the events that are taking place in this country, with the budget that you have, I don't know, man. You know, I don't know what the solution is to that. I really, really don't, because it seems like a never-ending hole of funding, because the drones updates every minute of the day. There's a new advancement in drone tech or a new application for a drone. So I don't know, man. I don't know. This is the timing of this is interesting. But to answer the question, I think it wouldn't shock me if some of the drones that people may have seen in either the UK or Jersey could be incredibly advanced US drones, stir up a storm of shit to get this congressionally passed. And if you've got two different countries talking about it, you know, this is going to be a problem for the UK as well. This is not just going to be a US problem, the drone issue that is coming. It's not. Any ally of the United States, you know, and I can tell you a lot, the other countries that hate the United States are a lot closer to the UK. So it makes sense. It does make sense that things are being seen over the skies of the United Kingdom. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that at the end of this. I hope to answer that question a little better than I have now, but in short, yeah, I think there's good reasons for that.
I think the witnesses for their opening statements, members will now be recognized by order of seniority for 5 minutes of questioning. An additional round of questioning may be called after all members have been recognized, and also knowing that we have a second panel. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning.
Two panels.
Let's just start with current events, and I'll ask an open-ended question. What is going on in New Jersey?
Straight up, what is going on?
Sir, the FBI and our Newark field office, along with the state and local partners there, the Bureau is actively investigating the situation you mentioned, just the unexplained sighting of drone activity over that part of New Jersey, including proximity to sensitive sites and areas of concern. So we do not attribute that to an individual or a group yet. We're investigating, but I don't have an answer of who's responsible for that, of one or more people that are responsible for those drone flights. But we're actively investigating. What the Bureau has done to aid our state and local partners is what we generally do, enlist the help of the interagency, enlist the help of the public. There's a tip line there, that 1-800-CALL FBI tips.
Not what he asked you. What's going on in New Jersey?
Information from the public that can
What's
help
going
us resolve this. It is concerning.
Is the public at risk? Is public safety at risk? Are we concerned that there are nefarious intentions that could cause either national security or a public safety incident that would put Americans at risk?
There's nothing that is known that would lead me to say that, but we just don't know, and that's the concerning part.
I think the fact that we have these unknown drones, UASs, that are flying over either critical or sensitive facilities is exactly why we're having this hearing. And Mr. Jones.
Well, here's the thing: is if
actually for anybody on the
with
panel,
the funding that you have right now, how do you not know? And why should we give you more funding and reauthorize this legislation if you can't give us a simple answer to what the fuck's going on in Jersey? Like, I'm sorry. That's not a great answer. It's not a great answer. And again, it makes the timing of this really sus. Like, super suspicious.
let me just say, we go back to last year, there were incidents, including Langley Air Force Base, where for over a week we had unknown drones flying over a very sensitive military installation with F-22s and other, weapon systems on the ground. And I think that was cause for concern. So from a DHS standpoint, either on a border mission or from an FBI or DOJ, you mentioned, Mr. Wheeler, we don't necessarily have the authorities we need. Why can't we take action against these drones that are flying over sensitive sites? Why are we not taking action against drones that are flying over sensitive sites?
So authority exists to mitigate
the conflict, why
a
aren't we?
UAS in flight when authorized, and that could certainly apply to a sensitive site. I would be a little measured in speaking for the Department of Defense for those sites that are in question here, but I will say that we're, for the FBI, in a position, close liaison relationship with the Department of Defense and those areas that you mentioned, and will help in every way possible. But for securing those particular sites in this way, it is a DoD equity.
Mr. Jones, for the border, I was down in the RGV last year, and they told me that they had over 20,000 incidents just in a quarter of drones that were being operated by cartels. What's the danger along the southern border to our citizens, the safety of our citizens from drones?
Thank you, Chairman. So you touched on the volume of activity within the 500 yards of our contiguous border, the south, and even on the north is staggering. We have deployed detection technology. You mentioned 20,000. The significant threat is counter surveillance. They are surveilling law enforcement activities. They're doing this 24/7, 365. And historically, they've had to have high ground or terrain. Now everywhere's the high ground.
This is their high ground. They can see what's going on.
Exactly.
Do you have the authority to mitigate those physically or by other means?
So the Secretary has designated certain areas along our border as covered facilities. So yes, the capability exists and the authority exists in those covered areas.
Have those types of mitigations taken place? Are we actively mitigating?
We are actively mitigating, yes, sir.
And how many? My time is expiring, but how many events are we experiencing per year along the
Who do they
southern border?
belong to? If you're mitigating them, who do they belong
last
to?
year,
Probably
if we
drug
look at,
dealers, if it's the border.
45,000 detections on the southwest. Of those, 2,500 plus or minus actually made an incursion. So now we're talking about a very small subset. A lot of the surveillance is taking place outside of our jurisdiction in foreign airspace. That makes it particularly challenging for mitigation.
I bet we'll get back to these. My time has expired. Now recognize the ranking member for his 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you. I'll pick up on this same line of questioning. When a number of us visited the southern border last year, we heard from your officers about the challenges that drones were posing. And one question I have is, I understand they're being used primarily by the cartels for surveillance, to see where your officers are so that they can, more effectively traffic people, narcotics, firearms, et cetera, across the border. Do you see any evidence of the cartels using drones to actually move some of that contraband? Like, I'm thinking specifically of fentanyl. Are they using UASs to actually move fentanyl across the border?
We have yet to see fentanyl being moved via UAS. We have seen other narcotics, albeit in small quantities. From a cost model, it's not as effective for cartels because the
Definitely
payload
Mama's
capacity is so
Doughboy.
small, they have to make multiple trips. We have seen cocaine, we have seen heroin, we have seen methamphetamine, we've seen weapons. So there is a threat of moving contraband across our borders.
So
Weapons, fentanyl.
the numbers, of course, are
heroin.
staggering. I think at one point in your written testimony, you alluded to periods of as many as 1,000 detections a week. But
Damn.
the number of mitigations at the southern border was 86 in fiscal year 23 and 60 in fiscal 24. So why so few as a percentage of the whole? What are the barriers that you're facing?
Well, again, many of these detections occur in foreign airspace, thereby we cannot mitigate. Actually, a very small percentage actually incur into the United States. So, for example, in the southwest border, only 5% of that large number actually affected an incursion. Of that, we have very strict criteria, and they met the criteria. So the 60 that we mitigated in FY24 actually met the criteria for mitigation.
So I'm going to ask about both the 5% and the 95% then. So in the 5% that do come into our airspace, is the criteria too narrow, to bring them down? Why again, so few?
Well, again, one of the things that's notable here is that those are not 2,500 unique identifiers. You have repeat offenders. So we take down or mitigate one drone. Of that large number, that could be responsible for hundreds of those
I see.
detections.
So these are events, not necessarily individual drones, these statistics.
Yep.
That's correct.
Okay. So on
So it could be the same
95%,
drone
or really, I
crossing
guess,
over
100%,
50 times.
even if you
And on
don't
the
have the
50th
authority to
time
bring
they
them
get
down,
it.
those that are over foreign airspace, do you still have the ability, the technological ability to track where the operators are and to alert the Mexican or Canadian authorities as to where the operators are? And can you explain what that process is like?
Absolutely. And we do communicate directly with our foreign partners, and our communication is healthy, our sharing of information is healthy. And so what you just described is exactly what we do.
And is it working? Does it happen? I mean, when you notify Mexican authorities, for example, that, hey, we've got a drone and we know where the operator is, I mean, are they pursuing the operators? Do you have success stories? Again, are there gaps that need to be filled in that process? Can you elaborate?
Well, again, we have to rely on so in the case of government of Mexico, we have to rely on our Mexican partners to respond. A lot of times these are in areas that are not highly populated. They're very difficult to get to. They're also controlled by cartels. So by the time law enforcement responds, it's very challenging for them. It's not from lack of effort or lack of communication. It's just a very difficult environment.
Yeah. With the minute that I have left, I'll shift to Mr. Weekman. On the issue of special events, of SEER events, can you just elaborate a little bit more about why it is so important that the state and locals have expanded authorities, and what should the appropriate guardrails be, for those expanded authorities?
Yes. Each year, the FBI can cover a number of special events, and DHS covers some as well. So we're talking about big events like the Super Bowl, the World Series, the Indianapolis 500, that sort of thing. But obviously, those are not the only events that could be subject to an attack or a drone threat. You have many other football games, baseball games, soccer games, the World Cup. And if you add them all up, just focused on sporting events, even forgetting about, New York Times, New Year's celebration, there's all manner of events. So we can only cover a tiny fraction of those in any given year. And so if Congress gives the authority to state and locals to engage in the same activity, that vastly expands the scope of what counter-drone protection.
I'll just note for the record, thank you. I understand the need to expand that authority for the state and locals for these special events. I will just highlight, though, I think training is going to be very important in this, because there are plenty of people who fly drones at, high school football games and stuff for legitimate reasons. And we'll just need to make sure that the state and locals have the training to know how to kind of go after the bad guys without overly penalizing the good guys. But I take your broader point. And
Absolutely.
I yield back.
That's a big part of it, the training.
Thank you.
Gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Jimenez, for his.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that we face significant threats now from the technology that we have right now, but right around the corner, if not already here, is AI. And so some of the techniques that we use to mitigate current drones won't work on AI because they won't be piloted. They'll be just given a mission. They'll be given parameters of what to hit, and they'll hit
Right.
it by themselves. They don't need to be
Damn.
piloted. Do we have any
This guy's
capabilities
done
to
his
actually
research.
go kinetic, actually knock these things down? Either
Weirdly, another Jimenez has done his research, and he's a lawmaker. Look at that.
through, some kind of a projectile or with high energy that fries the systems. Do we have any of that available anywhere?
Thank you for the question. So without tipping our hand to our adversaries, I think it would probably be best, and we'd look forward to providing you a detailed briefing on our capabilities, kind of where our heads are at on, and we share your concern.
Yeah, because I think that not only concerns me in as far as Customs and Border Protection and our personnel, but also airports, large events, et cetera, where these drones can be used for really destructive purposes. And so I'm really, really worried about that. Mr. Jones, you said that you had legal authority to disable, to mitigate drones in certain areas. We have about a 2,000-mile-long border. So those areas, how many miles of the 2,000 do you actually have the authority to mitigate these drones?
Chairman, again, we're starting to get into an area I'm not comfortable with in an open forum, but we'd love to dock those details with you behind closed doors.
I take that to mean there's not too many miles, okay? So that's fair enough. Have you seen any kind of, we know that the cartels, especially the Mexican cartels, are working with the CCP, the Communist Chinese Party. The CCP provides the chemicals to the cartels who then produce the fentanyl that's killing thousands of Americans every single year. Do you see any link between, we see that link, do we see any links between the CCP, China, and the drones, the technology that's being used to surveil our border, and it's being used to help the cartels in their quest to transport people, drugs, guns, everything into the United States?
It's no secret that the preponderance of the UAS technology is manufactured in China, and the cartels are using that very technology. We share your concerns. There's a reason why we don't use Chinese drones. And whether they knowingly or unknowingly are potentially collecting information for the government of China.
That's a hell of a way to infiltrate a country. Make cool drones that everybody buys.
That's it. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
And then
Yield back.
use the instruments
yields.
within
The
it
chair
to
recognizes Mr.
send
Tanadar
messages
for
and
his
spy on the country you sell them to.
Thank you, Chair Fluger.
Pretty wild.
The operation of CUAS technologies to intercept drones is sensitive, as it generally requires seizure of property without a warrant. To do so, CUAS technology operators must hack into the signal used to control the drones, which often involves hacking into operators' cell phone or computer. As such, Congress has waived certain wiretapping and other privacy protections for agencies to carry out these activities. As DHS and DOJ have began to operate CUAS technologies, what have your agencies done to formally enshrine protections for privacy and civil liberties? Any one of you?
Sir, I can speak for the way that the FBI conducts the mission. We're very sensitive to those concerns. The information that is captured electronically from our technology that we use is just the information that has to do with the control of the drone, the flight, the telemetry data, if you will. Even if it is being operated by a personal device like a cell phone, for example, the technology that we use does not capture any other information from there, and we're very sensitive to how that is collected. And whatever that information that we collect, we don't maintain it if it's not threat, if it is not part of a case. If it is part of something that we investigate, then our regular guidelines of legal process and how we would maintain evidence apply. but we're very sensitive to privacy concerns and making sure we get it right and do it correctly.
All right, thank you so much. Congress is currently considering authorizing a pilot program for state, local, tribal, and territorial law enforcement agencies to operate CUAS technologies. Expanding these authorities must be done carefully, as doing so requires waiving wiretapping protections and other critical protections to protect privacy and civil liberties. How can we ensure the operation of such technologies, potentially by a large number of law enforcement agencies, will be closely coordinated with and overseen by federal authorities? Mr. Wigman, most critically, how can we protect privacy and civil liberties?
Thank you for the question. So if the pilot program, the state and local pilot program that you mentioned is adopted, there would have to be, the law would require training for all state and local officials. It would also require them to follow the same procedures that my FBI colleague just mentioned in terms of the type of technology they can use, the type of data that they can collect, the rules of engagement, what type of facilities they can correct. So if they do it safely, they'd have to work with the FAA. All of their activities would have to be approved by DHS and Department of Justice working with FAA. So it's quite a labor-intensive kind of process that we're envisioning under the state and local pilot program to basically get state and local authorities up and running so that they can mirror and do the same things that, that we do at the federal level. And that includes protecting privacy and civil liberties.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How do I pronounce your name? Is it Weigman? Or
It's Wigman.
Wigman.
Yeah.
Mr. Wigman, I want to bore into this just a little bit more. So, and some of the questions have indicated and the answers indicate you got to be careful about revealing specific technological things. But I noted one thing when you were testifying, you said that the reason you need expanded authorities, I believe I got this right, is that the effective technologies to deal with this could violate laws on intercepting aircraft in flight and intercepting transmissions. Did I get that correct?
That's right.
And maybe if you could just help me understand a little bit better. If you've got like a mass spectator event, which is one thing that's been raised, it seems to me, how do you have and you've also said, several of you have made the point that, how you intercept data to prevent intruding on privacy and only certain types of data. And I must tell you, that has a sophistication level I don't really understand. Why not just have a rule that anybody who flies a drone near a mass spectator event, the drone's going to be destroyed in the air? Is that something that it'd be hard to do? And then why do you need to intercept data in order to do that? If the object is there, destroy it.
So it's a good question. I think the way it works, as I understand it, and my colleagues can talk about this operationally, if you had, let's say, a football game, and you would have a perimeter, it would be declared as a temporary flight restricted area.
Okay.
So around that, you're going to have a buffer zone. You have an area where it's a no-go, and then you have a larger area around that where you might want to detect what's flying, and then you have a larger area around that where you might be tracking, but regular commercial drone use is okay. And so as they're getting closer and closer to the facility, you're detecting originally the signals to see what is that drone. You're trying to identify the drone. Oh, is that a UPS? Is that
like a long distance radar or something like that?
Exactly. So is that a UPS drone that's just delivering a package somewhere? Let it go on its way. Is it getting closer right into the zone where you're going to have to do something against it? So it's kind of a calibrated thing, and as you get closer and closer, then that's where you take the opportunity to use the technology to jam it. Is most frequently rather than destroy the drone, you're interfering with its navigation in a way that confuses it and requires it to land. And that's what they do in these scenarios to make it land somewhere rather than it's not the same as shooting it out of the sky is my understanding of how it works. You're instead using electronic things to bring it down. So that's essentially how it works.
Is the technology, and I've always been curious about that. I've asked that, first time I asked it in a hearing a couple of years ago, there's a Twitter of laughter throughout the room about naivety of thinking you could destroy the thing in the air. And I guess maybe if it leaves debris to fall or something, I could understand
It could be
that.
dangerous also, I think.
Yeah.
If you were just to kinetically destroy it, I imagine there would be some hazards with that.
Should the average person looking at this, or the average congressman trying to understand it, believe that these technologies where you can use electronics to force the device to land are successful or have a high degree of reliability? Maybe I'll direct that to Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
So there's also non-destructive kinetic capabilities. So one thing from a law enforcement perspective we have to remember is that if we can capture a drone, there's a forensic capability that allows us to glean information.
Yeah.
And so that's important to us, as well as avoiding or minimizing any collateral damage. We have to be very careful in any application of force in public areas, responsible law enforcement, first do no harm.
Is any witness able to testify? Because what you've essentially laid out is we've had a series of short-term reauthorizations of what you had, the authorities that now exist, and the issues you want to expand the authorities. And I have concerns, especially after a variety of ways in which I think government authority has misused power to intercept information or learn information about the American people and has gone too far. What are can anybody describe what the hesitancy is and why they're not significant, or why they should be overruled and proceed with this more expanded authority? Mr. Wigman?
Hesitancy in adopting the expanded authority, or?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of hard for us to answer because we support expanding the authority. But I think that it's important to recognize when you talk about intercepting signals and so forth, as I mentioned in my opening statement, as Assistant Director Wheeler just mentioned, the types of signals that we're getting are the same types of information that is actually required to be broadcast and that anyone can pick up with a drone today, as the FAA's rules. So we're not talking, there is I guess a privacy interest, but it's the same type of information that we're now requiring, and it's a new regulation, but requiring drones to broadcast so that anyone can pick up, because it's really just about the communications between the drone and the controller, so that we can figure out where is that person, what's the registration, what's the model, how do we deal with it. So I think the privacy interest is limited.
My time has expired. Thank you very much, Ayuba.
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Correa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the gentleman or witnesses for being here today. Very timely issue for all of us. I think your testimony and the questions show that a little bit of a tension here between private property, private rights, but I think the bigger one here is protecting public safety. A couple of times back home, I had the chance to see some drones flying over my house, looking in my backyard. Frustrating, angry, didn't have any kinetic weapons with me, so they came and went. But on a serious note, I'm home to Disneyland. Worldwide, it's still viewed as an American private enterprise symbol. I've got the Anaheim Ducks Arena, OC Vibe that's being built right now, the Anaheim Ducks, SoFi Stadium nearby, World Soccer Cup coming to our area very soon, Olympics coming soon. So target-rich environment, so to speak. And what you're saying, Mr. Wigman, specifically, you said that federal government does not have the bandwidth to really protect all of these sites, yet we're still not at a point where we can share the authority information with state, local, federal authorities. And I hope we don't have to wait for a federal law to be passed to get there. My local sheriff in Orange County has a fusion center. Fusion centers exist across the nation where federal, state, local, FBI, every agency collaborate, share information, because when it comes to these drones, time is of the essence. Authority to neutralize these things is of the essence. And I guess my question to each and every one of you, starting with Mr. Jones, do you know of any efforts right now to coordinate with our locals to begin sharing, creating the local authority to be more effective at protecting our citizens? Mr. Jones.
I can speak broadly and just outside of just counter UAS. We are working with our federal, state, and local partners on a daily basis. Whether it's counter fentanyl, counter UAS, just general public safety, they're our partners. We're all on the same team.
And I'm glad
we need
you hear
the
you say
authority.
that. Go ahead.
We need the authority to designate select state and local law enforcement, and then with approved equipment, and, you know, just like my colleagues
We
stated.
need a federal law.
Yes, we do.
Some of us here could probably do something like that, Mr. Chairman. Hope we can also, I didn't hear it, I know Mr. Jimenez talked a little bit about Mexico. Cooperation, any there? This is something that deals with both sides of the border.
And like I stated earlier, our relationship and our information sharing with Mexico is healthy, both at the local level through the U.S. Border Patrol Foreign Operations branches, as well as our communications with Mexico City.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wheeler, same question to you. Do you know of any efforts to coordinate past laws to help us work with the locals to protect our citizenry?
Sure. I would illustrate it as maybe a good example for the situation in New Jersey and our Newark division we talked about earlier. The FBI Newark JTTF comprised of a lot of state and local officers that work on the JTTF are our people that are actively investigating this matter.
Are there any efforts to pass legislation that you're aware of to give the locals the authority to neutralize, monitor these aerial vehicles?
Well, that's not my purview for the legislation, but I can certainly tell you, I support capacity building for
Mr.
state
Wigman,
and local
my last 30 seconds.
That's what we're here for, Congressman. There's a Senate bill, there's a couple of House bills. All of them, to different degrees, would provide additional authority to the states, both at a minimum to do detection only, and then on a pilot program
Beyond
to do
those
the
bills,
mitigation as
do you
well. So
see
that's what we're here
beyond
for.
those bills, any other authorities that are needed to be vested in the locals to do their job?
I think those bills are where we should focus, and coming up with something that's will work.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm out of time. I yield.
Gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. It's been referenced that there are federal laws against intercepting aircraft or intercepting communication signals, and it's been cited today regarding the absence of a specific federal law authorizing local law enforcement to use existing technologies to mitigate against an unmanned aerial system threat or a drone threat. Let me say that, Mr. Chairman, I believe that the 10th Amendment already extends such rights to the sovereign states. And let me say that the current law, the current federal law that authorizes specific federal law enforcement agencies to use existing and emerging technologies to mitigate against unmanned aerial systems. Yes, that authorizes those specific federal agencies to deploy that technology, but in no way does a current law prohibit the rights of the sovereign state to authorize their own state and local law enforcement to use existing technologies and emerging technologies in a law enforcement capacity. Mr. Wigman, is it against the law for one American to strike another American? Yes, it is. It's not a trick question. Is that against the law?
Obviously it depends on the context. There could be
of course,
self-defense,
there's a
whatever,
general
but
law against
generally,
that.
Yeah.
But is it allowed for a law enforcement officer who has probable cause to detain you or arrest you? Is it allowed for him to strike you in order to effect that arrest? Yes, of course he can. Is there a law against me crashing my car into yours purposefully? Yes, there is. But Mr. Jones, are you familiar with the pit maneuver? Of course, law enforcement has been using this for decades. We use our vehicle to crash into a suspect vehicle in a particular manner reflective of our training in order to effect the arrest. We're using the current training standards and the technology of our vehicle that we have deployed to effect that arrest. That's not a vehicle crash. It's a law enforcement action. That's broadly known. Everyone knows it's against the law for one American to shoot another one. But a law enforcement officer, in order to effect arrest, if he needs to escalate to lethal force, we know a law enforcement officer has that authorization through federal and state laws. So, yes, there's plenty of laws. You guys love to cite these laws that exist so we cannot intercept an aircraft. We understand that. But if intercepting the aircraft is a law enforcement action, which using existing technology to mitigate against an unmanned aerial threat, Mr. Chairman, these technologies exist, and absolutely our local and state law enforcement entities should have access to the same technologies that we seem to be very protectively reserving for only select federal agencies. So, Mr. Jones, you had stated earlier, good sir, and thank you for wearing the badge, my brother. You had stated earlier that yes, you're deploying these systems, but please clarify for America that there are great restrictions on actually deploying the technology to land a drone. You're using the technologies primarily to track criminal drones, but you're not using that technology primarily to land drones, which is what the technology does. Am I correct in that assessment or not, Mr. Jones?
Well, both are true. We are using technology to track the drones. We are also using technology and electronic means to intercept and land the drone at a place of our discretion.
And give us the numbers by percentage. If you track 100 drones, how many are you landing?
Well, like I stated earlier, for FY24 Southwest border, we actually landed 60 of them, mitigated 60 of those aircraft.
60 of the 45,000 that you encountered? Well, there you go. That's what I'm saying. You're using the technology to track, but you're not using the technology to fully mitigate. So this is what we've been talking about for a year, Mr. Chairman. This technology, by 10th Amendment right, belongs to the sovereign states,
right,
and they should be allowed to fully deploy it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Gentleman's time has expired.
I agree
Chair
with Mr.
recognizes
Higgins.
From Texas, Mr. Gonzalez.
You absolutely nailed it.
Thank you, Chairman.
Like, it shouldn't need any more laws. The
sometimes I
state
feel
already
like I'm in
has
the
the
twilight zone up
authority
here.
to.
Like month
You should
after
be able to
month,
give
people
those
come before
technologies
us, they
without
testify.
additional laws.
We
Like,
don't get a lot of
cut the
answers,
shit.
and it's concerning. It's frustrating. You're telling me we don't know what the hell these drones are in New Jersey are? Is that correct?
That's right.
It's crazy. I mean, that's crazy. That's madness that we don't know what these drones are. You're telling me that a lot of these, Mr. Jones,
Especially
you're
with
telling me that 90%.
All right, now we're getting hot here. Now it's spicing up a little bit. And yes, you're right, Pip. I didn't think that watching congressional hearing in the 21st century would be the thing that people watch. A guy watching the hearing. But here we are. This is a pretty cool moment right here. How the hell do we not know? But I wish they would bring it back to the legislation and whatever I'm trying to find the budget for the Counter UAS Authority Security Safety and Reauthorization Act. It does not have a budget connected to it on the Congress.gov website. I haven't looked up the initial budget for this just because we're doing a show. But if anybody's got the budget for this HR 8610 reauthorization, let me know. But these are good questions, but I wish they would hold. Well, if you don't know what the hell these drones are with the money we do give you, why should we give you more money and more authorization? It doesn't make any sense.
95% of these drones along the U.S.-Mexico border, we can't interact because they're not in U.S. territory?
That is correct. A large proportion of them stay in foreign airspace.
I'll tell you what, there are a lot of Americans that are very frustrated right now that are essentially questioning, where are my taxpayer dollars going? You know, this Doge craze that's kind of starting to take hold, this is very real. I mean, this is going to come. People are going to have to come before the carpet, and they're going to have to explain every single line item. What do you do here? What does this get? And so let me ask a very specific question. Mr. Wheeler, how much of the FBI budget goes towards counter-UAS?
So the technical part of operational budget that I have within the critical incident response groups, just less than 500,000.
500,000?
500,000?
That's nothing.
$500,000? That is the piece of bubble gum that you've put on this dam? I thought it was going to be, and this is just the FBI budget. Wow, man. That's insane.
Well, why is it so low?
Well, I don't.
And I wonder we don't know what the hell is going on. 500,000.
So that number doesn't capture the FBI Newark investigation, for example. The budget allocation for what we're doing investigatively is not captured in that number, but for the technology we use and the way we deploy it.
Thank God it's not like $1 billion.
We want to help you. I mean, this is a committee. The chairman's putting this together because we want to know these topics. So the American people deserve to know the truth on this, and we also deserve to have actions on it. And if it's a budget issue, no problem. But it's also what is our money getting us? Clearly, not a whole lot. And something needs to change, though. I'm trying to figure out what that something is. It just, month after month, it's the same old, same old. From a CBP standpoint, Mr. Jones, do you know what the current budget of CBP is for counter-UAS?
I can tell you that direct appropriations for counter-UAS was zero last year.
Zero?
Come on.
So
CBP took it out of Hyde. And we will continue to take it out of Hyde. Now, I can't tell you exactly what that number is. I have a general ballpark, but we can discuss that. I provide that as a get back to you.
Another committee that I sit on is appropriations. So I see a lot of things
California Border
through
Patrol.
the lens of dollars
I bet
and
that's
cents.
a big
if
number.
you're putting zero on the board, you're probably not going to get a lot of success. And it's not fair. A lot of people talk about the border.
It's not
I
zero.
represent the border. Nearly half
Let's
of
be
the southern
real.
border.
It's not
I've been
zero.
out there with these agents in the middle of nowhere that are essentially alone and unafraid, making do with what they have. It's not fair to them, and ultimately it's not fair to us to have them combat against some of these drones that are happening with a zero budget. I mean, it's just madness. So
I'm sorry. I have to. There's no way. There is a budget. He's pulling it from somewhere else. Where he's pulling it from and how much it is, I don't know why they can't disclose that number. What is that number? I have a feeling it's pretty big. I have a feeling it's a lot more than 500,000, I bet. And why they can't disclose that number is ridiculous. And it's true. Pip makes a great point. They spent $22 million on ghosts and werewolves as Skinwalker. Why the complacency on the next obvious threat? I mean, and this is like a real threat. It's not werewolves smoking cigarettes and dino beavers. This is like real shit. And you're telling me that the FBI's budget is $500,000 and the California Border Patrol is zero? Like, come on. Like, there's no way. There's no way.
No, I guess I have other line of questioning, but I don't want to embarrass anyone.
Where did he say? I'm sorry. I got to see where he said he pulled that from, where that budget was pulled from.
Month after month, it's the same old, from a CBP or UAS.
I can tell you that direct appropriations for counter-UAS was zero last year.
Zero. So
CBP took it out of Hyde. And we will continue to take it out of Hyde. Now, I can't tell you exactly what that number is. I have a general ballpark, but we can discuss that. I provide that as a get back to you.
Another committee that I sit on is appropriations. So I see a lot of things through the lens of dollars and cents. If you're putting zero on the board,
listen,
you're
look
probably
at
not.
this. The first thing it can't be Senator Hyde, but there's a and this was for Mississippi, 21.2 million for helicopters.
Not going to get a lot of success. And it's not fair. A lot of people talk about the border. I represent the border, nearly half of the southern border. I've been out there with these agents in the middle of nowhere that are essentially alone and unafraid, making do with what they have. It's not fair to them, and ultimately it's not fair to us to have them combat against some of these drones that are happening with a zero budget. I mean, it's just madness. So I guess I have other line of questioning, but I don't want to embarrass anyone. I would just say, I would be very interested in partnering up and figuring out what we need to do in order to find and answer some of these questions. What resources do you need? The technology is already out there. Drones, this isn't new. Drones are 100 years old. This isn't state of the art. Drones are old technology. The fact that we don't know what's flying in our airspace is only the tip of the iceberg, what's to come. We have to fix this. And I want to partner up to fix this. Part of that is finding out the proper resources you need, training, authorities. I get the authorities piece, but it's a cradle to grave type of situation. It cannot just be, the answer can't be we don't know. And the answer can't be zero. I mean, we got to do better than that. And if we don't, I suspect not good things will happen. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming before us and testifying. I look forward to partnering with all your agencies.
So it's interesting. The fiscal year since 1994, when the current strategy of the concentrated border enforcement was first rolled out along the U.S.-Mexico border, the annual budget for the U.S. Border Patrol has increased nearly 20-fold, rising from $400 million to over $7.3 billion in fiscal year 24. So you're telling me out of the $7.3 billion, you guys are spending zero on drone recovery over the borders of the United States? That there's no way. There's no way. I'm sorry. That cop with the huge fucking shoulder pads is full of shit. He's full of shit. And I don't know what he means by Hyde when he says he's pulling the funding from Hyde, and he will continue to pull it from Hyde. I don't know what Hyde means. If anybody out there knows what that means, please get at me because I'm curious.
Yield back. Gentleman yields. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. D'Esposito.
Thank you, Chairman. And I sort of feel the same way as my good friend, Mr. Gonzalez. This is like deja vu. We've been talking about this for a long time and seems to be not getting much answers. I mean, the chairman and I visited New York City probably close to 2 years ago. We met with the leadership in the NYPD. It was probably one of the most rapidly growing drone use in the country. And my vision on jurisdiction of taking down drones may be different from others here. But first, I think it's important to quickly focus on stuff back at home. I mean, these drones over New York and New Jersey, flying over critical infrastructure, flying over some of whether it's the Verrazano Bridge or others. I mean, I have to agree with my colleagues. The fact that we continue to say that we don't know what they are, we don't know what they're doing. I mean, the American people are looking at us and they think that we're lying to them because they think, how could you possibly not have answers to drones flying over some of the most critical airspace in the country? So, I mean, if we're expecting the American people to believe in the information that we're giving them, I think we do need to do better. And that's none of your fault. I mean, the fact that there's only $500,000 in drone expenditures appropriations. I mean, that's absolutely insane. And I hope that it's something that my colleagues work on. But as many has already pointed out, drones continue to rapidly advance and become more readily available. Along with the expansion, threats from drones being used by bad actors have only increased, as all of you have mentioned. Right now, counter-UAS authorities are restricted from local law enforcement agencies, leaving it largely in the hands of federal agencies. So, Mr. Wigman or Mr. Wheeler, very simple questions. Do federal agencies have the ability to assist local law enforcement agencies with their counter-UAS capabilities everywhere and every time it's needed?
Not today. That's what we're seeking from the Congress.
Yep.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Are there events and places that would benefit from counter-UAS capabilities that federal agencies are simply not able to cover?
Absolutely. There are.
Yes.
All right. In your submitted statement, you both said, quote, we need to empower state, local, tribal, and territorial law enforcement agencies across the country, which are primarily responsible for keeping our citizens safe at the local level, to take the steps needed to protect their communities from the emerging threat. This past year, right in my district, in the middle of my district in Nassau County, we hosted the 2024 International Cricket World Cup, including the India-Pakistan match. While there were drone-related threats from ISIS ahead of the tournament, the federal government was only able to assist with their counter-UAS capabilities for a small portion of the tournament. What is the current impact of local law enforcement not having these authorities? And I'll leave that to any of you.
Well, I think that's the main thing, is the capacity. We need more capacity to be able to do the mission, and we strongly support state and local jurisdictions having that capacity and the authority and the ability to help.
Right. And I think I'm sorry, Mr. Wigman, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's right. And just to answer your question also, Mr. Congressman Gonzalez as well, I mean, I think all of us on the panel share your view that we need to do more and more resources. If we do get the authorities, we will certainly need more resources. Right. Even if state and locals are doing it, that will require training and additional work and approval on our end. So more resources, more authorities, those are all things that we would support.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point down and to spread the message, because I think there's a lot of false information being spread about law enforcement agencies trying to say that, well, they don't want this added enforcement. They don't want to take on this responsibility. I mean, we had a hearing in this room just hours ago where the commissioner of the Nassau County Police Department, Patrick Ryder, was here, and he has been advocating in his position as commissioner, as his position as a member of the Major City Chiefs, that this is something that local law enforcement agencies, not only do they need it, they want it. And I think that we have the opportunity throughout this country to make sure that law enforcement agencies, there is some sort of consolidation. There are many law enforcement agencies that border one another, that could help each other deal with this, I'll call it a burden, but this added burden. But they're willing to do it. Why? Because it makes sure that people can be kept safe. We can make sure that in instances like the World Cup back in my district, or as Mr. Jimenez was talking about the summer games in Miami. I mean, to depend on the federal government, and the federal government is telling us, well, we can only help you some of the time, even when you have threats from ISIS, I mean, that's a huge problem. And it's one that we need to address not only here today, but moving forward. And Mr. Chairman, my time has expired, but thank you for continuing to bring this to light.
Gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing today. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming today. I got an article right here, mystery drone spotted over New York, New Jersey, prompt calls for federal investigation. I believe this was Breitbart News. I want to start with you, Mr. Wheeler from the FBI. What can you tell us about what you guys do know?
So the public reports and what we have from eyewitness sightings, some of those very credible police personnel and others are what we describe as unidentified drones. We do not know the particular specifics of what those drones are. Some are described as being slightly larger than a commercial available drone. Fixed wing as well as rotary. We have helped analyze with our partners video and pictures of what those look like, what have been submitted. Part of that is these over 3,000 tips from the public, and to look at that. But as I previously stated, we don't know the people responsible behind that, and that's what we're working on.
Yeah. What did you say you guys the FBI was spending on counter drone?
My budget that would specifically include the technology that we use.
Is it 500,000?
It's 500,000.
What? That doesn't seem nearly adequate. Why do you feel like there isn't a push within the FBI to keep up with modern warfare and modern threats?
So we're
What is the budget for the FBI right now?
roughly 11 billion.
Wow.
Okay, why do you think as warfare changes, and as you know, sir, warfare is changing drastically right now overseas, especially with Ukraine and Russia and the development of drone technology, why isn't the FBI taking this threat more seriously? And that's obviously reflected by the budget that you guys have assigned to counter drone technology.
I have a limited capability that is embedded within our emerging threats unit for surveillance issues. That allocation of resources, that research, that operational deployment of our capability is what we have today. I would imagine that this would grow over time.
What do you think that some of these terrorist cells that might be in the country right now, or maybe even outside of our borders, what do you think that they're looking at when they see a hearing like this and they see that you guys still, after almost a month, don't know who these drones are? What do you think that they're thinking?
So I would be measured in how we speak about our capability and what our limitations and capacity is. However, I'll say to you that it's not as good as I wish it was, and we'll continue to work to make it better.
Yeah, well, when you're only spending $500,000 a year, it's probably not going to be very good, is it?
The only thing I would say about that is that this is an enterprise-wide problem. It's not just a technological problem, that most of that $11 billion budget for the FBI gets after threats to Americans, this being one of them. And the way we apply resources, personnel, operational, all of that to include technology to get after a threat that would threaten American lives, I don't think that $500,000 for the technology part of it adequately captures our commitment to protecting Americans.
I want to shift real quick because you guys have been talking about using electronic warfare to counter some of these drones. What about drones that aren't susceptible to counter warfare, like your fiber optic drones? What are you guys doing about those? I'll start with you, Mr. Jones.
So all options are on the
Fiber-optic
table right now.
drones.
We are exploring kinetic options.
You know,
Complement the electronic.
you can buy those right now, and they're really not that expensive. Are you aware of that, Mr. Jones?
I'm aware there's a lot of different technologies out there. We have experimented with some that have been very successful.
Yeah. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
Just FYI, fiber optic technology or fiber optic drones uses pulses of light to travel through glass or plastic fibers to transmit information. The technology provides a number of advantages over traditional copper wiring, including higher bandwidth and data transfer speeds. So I'm assuming that fiber optic drones have the capability of, well, transmitting data way, way faster and uploading either missions and or data that they collected faster. So yeah, scary shit.
The gentlelady from New York, Ms. Maliatakis, is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Pfluger. Thank you all for being here today. I just want to follow up on what my colleague asked regarding what happened in New York and New Jersey. These drones, unmanned aircrafts, have also flown over my district. A number of constituents have seen them over a power plant in Brooklyn. They were coming over the Verrazano Bridge, and I will remind everyone or explain to everyone here that Verrazano Bridge connects Staten Island and Brooklyn, and on the Staten Island side you have Fort Wadsworth, which is a U.S. Coast Guard Sector New York base, And then in the Brooklyn side, right on the other side of the Verrazano Bridge, you have Fort Hamilton, which is a U.S. Army installation. And so it is very concerning to me that we have these objects. We're not sure if they're drones or unmanned aircrafts, but they are flying over sensitive infrastructure and facilities. Wow. And the fact that we don't know what they are or who's behind them or what they're doing is very concerning to me, particularly in a post-Chinese spy balloon world. Okay, the fact that this administration allowed for a Chinese spy balloon to go across the country over multiple military installations is very concerning, and that we could potentially be having this happen again it's like astounding to me that this is even happening without any type of intervention. You say it's no known threat, but is there still a possibility of there being a threat? At the end of the day, that's what my constituents want to know.
Yes, I am cognizant, and we all are in the FBI, of what this threat can look like. Anyway, across the spectrum of sophisticated state actors, adversaries that want to hurt us, all the way through counterterrorism matters, cyber, WMD, criminal, all the way down to a nuisance drone that could cause harm. So that's the wide spectrum that concerns me every day.
Okay.
I would just mention it concerns me that we don't know the answer to your question yet.
And are you working with the Pentagon, with FAA, with DHS, with your partners to try to identify this? Because I don't put it all on just the FBI. I think this is, what is Homeland Security doing?
Right. Right. Great question.
Do you have any idea?
And why is nobody from Homeland Security there?
For another department, but I will say that the way we do business is extremely collaborative in the interagency, and especially with our state and local partners.
So who is taking the lead here on this particular issue to identify these drones and aircrafts?
Well, we have an investigation open predicated on a idea that there's unsafe operation in the airspace, which is a federal violation that we have some jurisdiction for. But it would help us know sort of what lane this falls in when we know the people that are responsible and what this is all about, to your point earlier. And we're actively investigating and would like to answer those questions, but I don't have a better answer.
And what if they were carrying chemical weapons or something? We just don't, this could be a much worse conversation we could be having right now, because these things have been flying all over New York, New Jersey, over military installations. I don't know, I don't know what's going on there, but these agencies need to figure it out and try to get to the bottom of what's going on. I think it's very concerning. Is there a possibility, if hopefully it is not a threat?
She's got a picture of something here on her desk. I wonder if that's, I don't know what it is, but it looks, I don't know. Maybe it's of a drone system here in the blue, what looks like sky. Interesting.
Is it a possibility it would fall under this System Assessment and Validation of Emergency Responders program, the SAVER program? This is a program under Department of Homeland Security, Science and Technology, where they are testing various technology for search and rescue, disaster response, and it could be part of a law enforcement assessment. You think that's a possibility? Because my Army base doesn't know about it. My NYPD doesn't know about it. So I guess my question is, why wouldn't the local authorities know if this was part of a testing of security technologies for first responders?
So I don't know that to be the case, and I couldn't really comment on that. Okay,
well, just again, I would love to speak to you offline at some point and maybe share some information with you, but I would really just urge if you could speak to your colleagues and counterparts in these other departments, and because we need to get to the bottom of what's going on here. And if it is something that is not nefarious and is one of part of these public safety applications that are being tested, they need to coordinate with the local authorities. So my guys in New York NYPD, they know that it's not a threat.
I would agree.
All right, thank you.
So what we'll do here also, we've got about, 45 minutes here left. So I'm going to pause it here for a second. I'm going to take a little break, put on some music. while I take a little break. And then when we come back, we're going to go through the rest of this, but I'll double the speed so we can get through it faster. I know this is a lot. I know this is in parts boring, but I think we've learned some amazing information here. First of all, there is legislation that's coming to an end that they want more money for to continue. They're all crying that none of them have money or resources, yet the budgets and the bigger departments they belong to have enormous budgets and resources. So where's the disconnect there? The timing of it also, the timing of it is highly questionable. The FBI has no idea what these things are, which is, I don't think that's a great answer. Just in addition to the fiber optic drones, something here that Mama's Dope Boy had also pointed out is that those fiber optic drones have longer flight times, better stability, stronger connections to the operator, and they're impervious to jamming and detection. Again, like these are, the things that we've been saying about drone swarms and sending some to, the Brooklyn Bridge and some of them to Times Square, and each swarm is operating on its own. They've got little tasks that they accomplish and then they're done. And if the task is to hit power structures or places of high traffic, like a Super Bowl, like a World Cup, like the Olympics that are coming here to Los Angeles, there are high enriched target zones and situations. And so it's something that clearly these agencies aren't talking to each other on. Okay, we'll take a break. We'll be right back. And hang tight. 5 minutes. We'll be right back. right, we are back. We are back, everyone. Let's get into it. Thank you for your patience. All right. Switch it up. Oh, I meant this one. There we go. All right, so we're going to continue with this. And then once this is over, we'll go over it and I'll give you my opinion as to what I think is actually happening here. Although now that this whole renewal of budget thing is being thrown in here that I didn't really get when I first hopped into this conversation, because it was about halfway through when I first watched it a couple days ago. So now to get that context from the beginning and apply it to sort of my overall theory of what might be happening here, it definitely it's part of it now, but we'll get there. Again, let's go ahead and also just change the settings on this thing. We're gonna up this up a little bit to 1.5 the speed, not twice the speed, but 1.5 the speed, so we'll get this through this a little faster. All right, let's do it. Thank you guys for sticking around. Again, I think establishing this stuff is important, because I think going forward, this is going to be a very, very interesting and engaging conversation, especially, unfortunately, I think at some point people are going to get hurt from this technology, and it's going to be a big deal. So anyway, we'll be talking about it now. We'll be talking about it when and if that does happen. Here we go.
Gentlelady yields. This will be the last questioning from for the first panel. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Smith.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Chairman, Chairman, both of you, for allowing me to sit in on this hearing. I've been in Congress 44 years, and I have lost track of the number of times when we seemingly did not adequately assess a threat. I had one of my service members from the Marines in the barracks in Lebanon when that terrible, horrible deed was committed by Iran. I actually, after we got hit in Dar es Salaam and Nairobi in 1998 by Al-Qaeda, I chaired all the hearings. We had the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff come and testify as Admiral Crow. And they kept saying, no one thought that Al-Qaeda would hit there. Maybe in the Middle East, but not there. I wrote a bill called the Embassy Security Act. It was signed into law. I added it to an appropriations bill, big, thick bill, but it was all about setbacks and Mylar on the windows, a lot of good things. And it did mitigate, I think, some of the concerns there. But we always seem to miss something, and I'm very concerned that we're missing something here. I've raised the issue, as has my colleagues, Valiatakis and others in New Jersey and New York, about these drone sightings. So last night, I was on the beach in Island State Park in Ocean County with the sheriff. He has been working every single night. He's got his own tethered drones chronicling. One of his officers 2 nights ago saw 50 drones come in off the ocean right there. So we thought maybe they'll replicate it. They didn't, but we thought it was a possibility. Then last night we had a number of other people there, including a commanding officer from the Coast Guard, who said that one of their 47-foot motor lifeboats was followed by between 12 and 30 of these drones as they went through the water, followed right behind them. And I said, what's the rules of engagement? I mean, you do it if you're fighting against a narco trafficker or something. And they said, we don't know, we don't have any. So I did reach out to the commanding officer at the Joint Base, which is also in my district, and talked to him. Had a very good conversation, Colonel Anthony Smith, Joint Base Fort Dix McGuire, the 87th Air Wing, Air Base Wing today. And I said, I know you have the capability, you've put out press releases, to identify and bring down drones. Why can't you deploy them, at least to the ocean? Bring one of these down, find out who's doing it. They have the capability. They said we don't have the authority, only within the parameters of our base. Well, there's a national interest here. Our jets fly over the ocean all the time for training, so that perimeter is larger. So I did write Secretary Lloyd Austin asking that capability that may be sitting in a closet somewhere. I know they use it all the time, but bring it out. And I'm not saying you got to share it with the sheriffs. It'd be nice. Just do it yourself in the interest of the American public. So I would ask if you would echo that request. I mean, DOD's got the capability, and maybe Homeland Security does as well. When we had a Zoom meeting with Secretary Mayorkas, our governor put it together, and I appreciated that. But I asked them, why can't we just track where they go to? Seemingly, they're going out to sea, to something, a ship. We don't know for sure, but they come in off from the ocean. So the question really is, can't we just get DOD to share? In my first term, DOD and VA did a great thing, the DOD-VA sharing agreement for healthcare capabilities. It was fantastic. Why can't the DOD share this with Homeland Security, with FBI and others, so that you can go out and find out who they are? Maybe it's China. I chair the China Commission, and I've had 115 hearings on it. I'm barred from going there now. China is, and I'm on their hit list. Xi Jinping is a monster. Look what Putin's doing. They're all capable of doing horrible things to our people, and now they're threatening my good friend and colleague from New York, and of course New Jersey, big time. So let's go get that DOD capability and find out, and put to rest the question, who is it? We can bring one down tomorrow. Your thoughts?
Sir, I'd just say I share your concern. I share a lot of frustration, and I'm more than willing to continue working with the Department of Defense to try to get better.
Again, if they don't have the authority, they can do it on an emergency basis, Just send that capability out to the ocean, to the beach, because they're coming in every day. Figure out which one it is and bring them down. And then retrieve it and find out what's going on. As my good friend Congresswoman Malliotakis said, the thing with the balloon was mind-boggling. Over our bases, and we didn't see that was a threat. Well, this, I think, is a very serious threat. And so please, if you could, get DOD to share that capability. Maybe Homeland has it. I don't know. Maybe you have it somewhere. But I know DOD has it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Gentlemen's time has expired. I thank the witnesses for your valuable testimony, for being here today, and for the members and the questions. We will now dismiss this first panel, take a brief 2 to 3 minute recess while we arrange for the second panel of witnesses.
Very interesting last guy there. And he's right. Like, if you guys don't want to share the tech with the local law enforcement, then for fuck's sake, like, just take it out to Jersey and bring one of these down so we can get an answer on who the hell this belongs to. Again, I think we'll address that question with what I think is happening here. And man, it could be so many things. So many things, and we're gonna try and cover all of them. I've got so many different thoughts, so many different ideas and perspectives on what is happening.
Pleased to have the second distinguished panel of witnesses before us today.
Let's get through the
very
last
important topic, and I ask that our witnesses please rise and raise your right hand.
Have 15 minutes.
I solemnly swear that the testimony you will give before the Committee on Homeland Security of the United States House of Representatives will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. Thank you. You may be seated. Let the record reflect that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. I'd now like to formally introduce our second panel. Mr. Jeffrey Baumgartner serves as the Vice President for National Security and Resilience at Berkshire Hathaway Energy, and Dr. Paul Schwitisen serves as the Co-Director of the Global Strategy Decisions Group, also my classmate from the United States Air Force Academy, class of 2000. Thank you for being here, and we will now recognize Mr. Baumgartner for your opening statement of 5 minutes.
Chairman, ranking members, and members of the subcommittees, thank you for inviting me to testify. My name is Jeffrey Baumgartner, and I serve as the Vice President of National Security and Resilience Policy at Berkshire Hathaway Energy. Today, I want to discuss how unmanned aerial systems threaten critical infrastructure. Berkshire Hathaway Energy businesses provide reliable, secure, low-cost energy to more than 13 million customers in the U.S., Great Britain, and Canada. Our commitment to our customers requires us to secure our infrastructure from all threats, including those posed by unmanned aerial systems. Critical infrastructure is the backbone of our economy and security, yet energy sector infrastructure and the transportation, communications, and water sector infrastructure we rely on face increasing threats from UAS, and the stakes for ensuring resilience and security could not be higher. In recent years, UAS technology has become more accessible, affordable, and advanced. While these innovations offer immense potential, like enabling faster damage assessments of energy infrastructure, they also empower malicious actors. Adversaries can use UAS to surveil facilities, deliver hazardous payloads, disrupt operations, and even conduct cyber intrusions. The Department of Homeland Security's 2025 Homeland Threat Assessments highlights UAS as a persistent and growing risk to critical infrastructure. This warning isn't hypothetical. Last month, federal agents arrested an individual planning to use a UAS to attack an electric substation. I hope we can proactively address the UAS threat before a significant incident occurs. Despite the pervasiveness of the threat, existing federal laws and regulations have not kept pace with the rapid proliferation of UAS technology. Current frameworks primarily address safety and airspace management, but lack robust provisions to counter malicious UAS activities. This leaves critical infrastructure companies vulnerable to increasingly sophisticated threats. To address these risks, we must modernize our defenses while balancing security measures with civil liberties. A comprehensive strategy that incorporates technology innovation, appropriate legal frameworks, and public-private collaboration is essential. I hope we can prioritize the following actions. Number one, grant critical infrastructure companies limited authority to deploy advanced detection and counter-UAS technologies. Investments in cutting-edge counter-UAS systems will ensure we can address current and emerging threats effectively. Two, identify formal mechanisms for sharing actionable information about UAS threats and enable law enforcement at all levels with the tools and legal authorities to address UAS threats effectively. The third is advanced research and development. Collaborative R&D will improve the ability to neutralize UAS threats without collateral damage. The fourth and final, develop a comprehensive strategy to align regulatory, technological, and operational efforts at federal, state, and local levels, while addressing privacy concerns and establishing clear legal parameters for UAS operations. The private sector owns most of the critical infrastructure that provides key services, but protecting these assets is a collaborative effort. The National Security Memorandum on Critical Infrastructure Security and Resilience rightly emphasizes this partnership. However, existing counter-UAS authorities for DHS and the Department of Justice are set to expire soon. Failing to renew and expand current authorities risks leaving critical infrastructure defenseless against the evolving UAS threat. The window of opportunity to address these challenges is closing. By modernizing our defenses, updating our legal frameworks, and fostering collaboration, we can safeguard critical infrastructure, protect public safety, and maintain our leadership in security and innovation. We are ready to work alongside this committee, a coalition of critical infrastructure companies, and relevant stakeholders to effectively protect our critical services against the evolving UAS threat. Thank you for holding this hearing, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Baumgartner. The chair now recognizes Dr. Paul Schwitisen for his opening statement.
Thank you. Chairman Pfluger and Jimenez, ranking members Magaziner and Thanedar, distinguished members of the subcommittees. Homeland from unmanned aerial systems.
Oh, there we go.
So I've rearranged my remarks busily in the back, hoping to give you guys something a little more tangible to work with, so that we're not just repeating and risking the constant repetition of the problem. I think we acknowledge the problem. We have a real train wreck coming. I think it goes a little bit unsaid. I think we lack a lot of the technical know-how on how to deal with this, on how to assess and neutralize these threats. But there is somebody who does know, and that's the Ukrainians. Having recently observed firsthand the astonishing evolution in drone operations in Ukrainian-occupied Kursk, I think the message, for me at least, has finally sunk home. Unmanned systems are not just an iteration, they are indeed a revolution in the application of lethal force. The world's most advanced weapons and tactics are being developed and deployed at scale in the Ukraine-Russian front at remarkably low cost and without central direction. And these facts hold radical implications for the next major shooting war between great powers. We need to learn from the Ukrainians. The United States is rapidly losing its strategic military advantage in this new technical environment. There can be little doubt that China, North Korea, Iran, and other emergent powers are eagerly sending observers and technicians to the front lines in occupied Ukraine to very carefully note the revolution in weapons delivery and to adopt it into doctrines which seek to invert the military strengths of their larger, better equipped, better trained Western geopolitical adversaries. We need to learn from Ukraine. In short, the rules of the arms race have been fundamentally rewritten to favor small, cheap, easily mastered weapons systems. More important still, these disproportionate advantages are not a one-time effect. They amplify in a positive feedback loop through each iteration cycle. New tech gets better exponentially faster and is deployed far more quickly than legacy countermeasures. In Ukraine, the source of this immense innovation reservoir is the highly adaptable, highly diffuse emerging engineering base of Ukrainian technicians. Uncountable tech workers routinely work full days in their civilian capacity, then leave their jobs to go work in pop-up tech facilities until late at night. The whole country is on deck. They've created an ecosystem of invention, a web only loosely coordinated through the Ministry of Defense. The advances in hardware and software they produce are channeled into a robust system of decentralized training facilities. And in less than 3 weeks, an FPV drone operator can be mission ready. Operators with no previous battlefield experience have been credited with as many as 1,500 confirmed kills. The disproportionality is vast. And this is perhaps the main takeaway in a total war peer-to-peer scenario. If technology allows one side of a conflict to impose extraordinary damage on the exquisite, expensive, difficult to master weapon systems of their adversary, and can do so at a fraction of the cost expended by their enemy, it doesn't require an economist to see where that leads. It is easy to be a critic, but I am convinced the United States and its NATO allies have a very narrow window of opportunity to address this major shift in comparative advantage. Current operations in Ukraine have shown what a scrappy, innovative force can do to a large, hidebound military machine. It would be well to take note. So some of the scenarios looking forward. I think the most likely is that the U.S. will fall behind the leading edge of UAS development and deployment and will only start to respond in the aftermath of a crisis, and we're seeing some of that already in New Jersey. We don't need a Pearl Harbor or a 9/11 to wake us up. We're already awake. We need to deal with this now.
Wow.
So the best case is possibly, conceivably, that we can avoid this kind of depressing scenario through a well-orchestrated demonstration. Historical examples such as the sinking of the Ostfriesland, Air Force people know this well, show that it is sometimes possible to break entrenched paradigms by publicly demonstrating the current system's vulnerabilities. When understood by the right audiences, these demonstrations can shift doctrine development and tactical training in new and constructive ways, preferably before the lessons are learned the hard way. We need to learn from Ukraine. It's time to get a task force to mop up information, go out there, sponge this stuff up, and learn from what they're doing, and learn this information from in theater and get up to speed as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schwinneson. The chair will note.
Just to give you a little background, I was looking up Dr. Schwinneson's background and LinkedIn, found him there. And I'll tell you, he's a PhD in defense. He's a defense analyst and an environmental historian. He says his passion is advocating for individual freedoms worldwide by promoting the classical liberal principles of limited government and free markets. I'm especially interested in promoting sober environmental policies and sustainable stewardship grounded in rational scientific discourse and comprehensive environmental history. There was a... Let's see what is. I thought he had a. Yeah, okay, here we go. Liberty Doublecheck Ranch.com. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Okay. attackers might be trying to steal your information. This is what I get when I click from his LinkedIn profile websites, agrarianliberty.com, and that's the warning I get when I try to get on that one. So I won't go any further with that one. But I was seeing just to see if he had written a book or not. But okay, so University of Kansas, professional development, doctoral candidate, featured blogger on the Huffington Post, private aircraft pilot. Okay, so he is a pilot, so he understands at least that part of our atmosphere. It's interesting. A defense analyst, analyst, not analysis. Interesting. Okay. Let's continue. Let us continue. Sorry.
Note that we had a third expert on the panel, Mrs. Kathy LeWeir from the National Football League, unfortunately unable to join today. However, the chair asked unanimous consent to enter Ms. LeWeir's testimony into the record. Without objection, so ordered. Now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning as we did prior. Dr. Schwinneson, I'd like to focus on something here. Policy versus technology. What is our issue right now? Is it not enough technology? Is it not keeping up with the technology? As you mentioned, maybe we're being outmaneuvered in a lot of cases by the Russians, and the Ukrainians may have some information that we can learn from. Or is it a policy issue here as we protect the homeland, or is it both?
Yeah, I do think it's both. I think it's a combination of the two. I think we have created a policy thicket of bureaucracy that basically stifles the innovation space. Right? I do think we have a technical know-how problem, or at least we know for a fact that Ukrainians have a technical know-how solution. Right? And I think if we're able to reduce some of the bureaucratic barriers to innovation, allow people to tinker and experiment and learn at the operational military level, this needs to happen like yesterday. Right? We can't do the same old business of doing a 2.5-year request for proposal and wait for things to come back. We just can't do this business as usual. We do not have that time.
As we sit here, you listen to the testimony, we currently have UASs flying over New Jersey. We heard from Mr. Smith in New Jersey that they were flying over Coast Guard vessels last night. How is this possible? Why are we not responding? What do we need to do, and what actions need to be taken?
Yeah, that's a very difficult one to answer. Of course, I can't speak for them, but I have a suspicion that people are frozen with fear of what would happen in an administrative situation in which they took action and they were punished for doing so. That they shot down a drone, God forbid, and the debris hit somebody's house, and all of a sudden they're on front page news. And so people are acting out of a sort of sense of self-restraint here, which is being promoted by our policy environment.
So when it comes to technology, we need to focus on our offensive technology, lessons learned in the Ukrainian conflict where they're leveraging UAS systems everywhere. We need to focus on our counter-UAS technology, and our policy needs to improve in order to counter it and give the authorities that we need while protecting privacy of citizens here.
Yep, I would say so, absolutely.
I'll come back to you in a second. Mr. Baumgartner, what's the most catastrophic event in the energy industry, critical infrastructure, that we need to be thinking about and planning for to prevent?
I mean, luckily, we haven't seen a significant incident. I think from an imagination perspective, certainly something with a payload like the gentleman from Tennessee who was planning an incident to drop a payload into a substation. You could imagine that at a larger scale and impacting or identifying more critical infrastructure from generation to substations, or even on the pipeline side, a liquid natural gas import-export facility.
So my district, the Permian Basin, 6 million barrels a day, needs to be protected, and the authorities, in some cases, as you recommended in your testimony, should be delegated to private companies, in some cases, to both identify and also mitigate if needed.
I think that energy infrastructure in your district should be considered to be protected. Now, how that gets to a place where we can do that as the private sector, there are probably steps to get there. We have great relationships with local, state, federal law enforcement, and are happy to take an intermediary step to work with them to ensure that we understand the technology, the appropriate technology is in place, and we can implement that technology in a future state.
Thank you. Dr. Schwinneson, we'll go back to the services for a second and the race for technology. Let's focus on the Air Force, our alma mater, the Air Force Academy. How would you characterize the responses that we're seeing out of DOD, specifically the Air Force. Are they doing it fast? Is it neat in its approach? Or is it just average?
Right. I think it is below average, it gives me no pleasure to say that, but I think we are not taking it seriously enough. Again, it is as if everyone sees the train coming, everyone agrees the train is coming, and yet no one is taking any steps to get out of its way. Everyone is assuming that somebody else is doing it, and there's just no sense of urgency or coherent activity to address this issue. And again, that's easy for me to say. It's easy for me to throw spears from the sidelines. But I do think that one of the things we can do is leverage our very good relationships we have with Ukraine. We've given them a lot of resources, and they're quite willing and eager to give us something back in return for it. We should be mopping that information up right now. We should be sending people there right now.
Thank you very much. My time's expired. I recognize the ranking member for his question.
Thank you.
How do we
Chairman,
not have that
thank you
information
both.
already?
Dr. Schwendenson, I want to begin by commending you and thanking you for your...
That's the only thing I disagree with. Like, why? How is that data not already in the hands of the U.S. government? The drone upgrades and different tech that they're using within this conflict, how is that information and data not already in our hands? The very moment it happens. Like, we're literally funding this war. The least we could do is get the data. It's wild to me. It's wild to me that it's going to be our inefficiency and our lack of being able to not just react to things, but prevent them. Like when a terrorist attack happens, this will be one of the congressional hearings that they replay and go, we knew a month, 2 months, 5 months, a year, 3 years, 10 years before this terrorist attack happened that this was going to be a problem. And you guys didn't do enough. Look at this from 2024. It's coming. Like it's coming.
Assistance to the Ukrainians. I have to remind, unfortunately, some of my colleagues from time to time that Vladimir Putin is not our friend, that the cause of the Ukrainians is the cause of freedom and democracy, and that Russia continues to pose a threat not just to Ukraine, but to American interests all over the world. And so I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing over there, because that is the front line of freedom today.
Thank you.
I was interested in your written testimony when you expressed some skepticism in the effectiveness of signal jamming technology to mitigate risks from UAS on the battlefield. I was wondering if you could expand on that. Why are you sort of skeptical about the effectiveness or the promise of signal jamming and other counter UAS technology on the battlefield and also writ large?
Sure. I claim no engineering expertise in drone warfare, but all I can do is say what I've seen, which is that in the world's most intense EW battle space, which is the Ukrainian-Russian front at the moment, it is an electronic warfare chaos, right? And so what people used to think about the ability to jam drones, which is what some of the speakers we had here are talking about, which is 2 years old, which at this point is effectively a century old obsolete information.
Right.
Jamming doesn't work the way we think it does. And there are so many new developing technologies on countering the counters, right? They've already gone multiple layers ahead of us. At this point, they're doing AI pixel lock technology that doesn't have any RF frequency whatsoever. They're doing ambush technology where they're not needing to have any kind of communication between operator and drone. So, again, I don't know the specifics beyond what I've just seen, the tip of the iceberg, which is that, the jamming solution is not a one-size-fits-all, that's the silver bullet. It might be a piece of a suite, but that's only a piece.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's saying that's the tip of the iceberg. And that's what the Russians and Ukrainians are developing on both sides of this. What the Russians and the United States are developing on both sides of this, really. And to just pin this. This idea of the sophistication and the jamming, jamming is obsolete. These things are communicated, like you said, fiber optically without IR. They are injammable. Do you think the United States does not have that times 15? I think you'd be a fool to believe that. A fool. And we're about to get into it, but just pin this idea, this the technological advancement idea.
And I recognize that you've thought about this in sort of the DoD space more perhaps than Homeland, domestic law enforcement, et cetera. But I imagine the lessons are transferable. What do we need to do specifically in order to go from being laggards to leaders on this? You referenced procurement issues and kind of speeding that up. You referenced, bringing a spirit of I guess, inventiveness and innovation. But are there other specific things? I mean, is there training that we should be looking at deploying across the federal government? Is there some kind of specific workaround to procurement rules that you would recommend? Like, what are the nuts and bolts of what we should be doing in order to take back the advantage?
Yeah, I do think Yankee ingenuity is one of our comparative strengths, and we need to take advantage of it. And one of the ways to do that, this is not an especially sexy solution, so I say that with apologies in advance. But I think one example of an idea is to, at the DoD level, get drones down to the absolute operational level of units, so they can begin to tinker. There is as Elon Musk says, move fast and break things. And you need to learn on the fly. You need to learn in the trenches how these things are operated. It isn't enough to do this from a centrally managed, top-down approach in which we're going to go through this entire typical cycle and then deliver the tool to the warfighter wrapped with a ribbon. It doesn't work that way anymore. We have to give it to them and let them develop it on the fly.
Empower the people on the front lines to innovate. That makes sense. Mr. Baumgartner, I apologize.
I mean, yeah, I'm sorry. This guy's making some great points, and I don't want to lose them. And I agree with him here. Like, this technology, we're at a point where they need to learn on the fly. Like, it's like, oh, we shoot one of these things down. What's it made of? Actually, can we use any parts out of that thing on ours? Reverse engineer it and then apply it so you can stop it, whatever iteration of it is coming next, or a component that they weren't thinking about. Like, there's so much information you could gather from that. And he's right. Like, the state of New Jersey, if these things are actually happening, which again, we'll get there, like, they should be able to shoot them down, reverse engineer them, and local law enforcement should know exactly what they're made of, how they work, and how to bring them down. And then take that information and figure out where it came from. Like, unless it's directly a threat to that local state, whatever, they can figure it out. That's when they join teams, join forces to stop whoever's sending these things. But hey, this guy's making some really good points.
I apologize, I only have a minute left, but I wanted to explore this importance of the cooperation between private industry and particularly state and local law enforcement. What are the best practices there that you've noticed, and are there things that we can do to support those kinds of collaborations?
Well, we work very hard to establish and maintain those relationships in all the states and localities that we serve. I think it does become about manpower and hours spent in doing that collaboration, and so there are certainly challenges to maintaining that, but I think fusion centers are a great opportunity to engage in a wide variety of state and local efforts at one location. I think there are other similar opportunities, like in our sector, we have the Electricity Information Sharing and Analysis Center that also convenes those state and local partners in a regional fashion, and we're able to effectively have those conversations and maintain those relationships in that forum as well.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Ranking Member, and I recognize myself for 5 minutes, and I'm not going to take 5 minutes, but Mr. Swenson, I totally agree with you that we have a problem here in the United States in dealing with these systems, not only for warfare, but also for protecting the homeland. I would think that what part of the
Uh-oh. What happened?
Challenges to maintaining that, but I think fusion centers are a great opportunity to engage in a wide variety of state and local efforts at one location. The information local part actively.
Thank you, Ranking Member, and I recognize myself for 5 minutes, and I'm not going to take 5 minutes, but Mr. Swenson, I totally agree with you that we have a problem here in the United States in dealing with these systems, not only for warfare, but also for protecting the homeland. I would think that what part of the problem is that you got $500,000 in the FBI. I'm sure you have $500,000 in some other agency, and you got all these agencies working on the same issue, and then it's not really centralized. There's no planning, et cetera. Maybe airports are trying to do their thing, and The FBI is trying to do their thing, and Customs and Border Protection trying to do their thing. Would it be beneficial to try to put this all together and just focus on the unmanned aerial system threat in the homeland?
I have to say I lean that way. I hate to beat a dead horse here, but the Ukrainians have once again shown some ways to deal with this. They have stood up their entire separate new force, very much like the Marine Corps or the Air Force. They've set up the Unmanned Aerial Systems Service in the Ukrainian Department of Defense in order to do precisely that, in order to address this entire new sector of technology and how it's to be developed and applied.
Probably one of the advantages that the Ukrainians had is that they had no Air Force, basically, right? And so by necessity, they needed to come up with something different that actually combated the threat. We have an Air Force. And unfortunately, what happens is that you have the resistance to change, and UAS, unmanned systems, et cetera, are a threat to the people that fly the planes, okay? And so we do need to look at this in an entirely different way. And so not only on the DoD side, where we do need to have the private sector innovate, and the RFP should be, hey, I want to knock out, I want to sink Chinese ships, all right? And just simple as that. If you ask DoD to do that, they'll come up with an aircraft carrier that costs $10 billion and all these systems. The Ukrainians are sinking Russian ships in the Black Sea with little boats with maybe 500 or 600 pounds of TNT on them. A whole bunch of them can't possibly take them all out, and basically, boom, no submarine, because that's the other thing we'd look at. Well, maybe we need to, have these really expensive submarines with torpedoes and stuff. The old way of fighting war. We need to look at the new way of fighting war. But here it's Homeland Security. Look, I'm convinced that we're going to have a problem. We'll wake up when something happens, because that's always what we do, and we should be waking up right now. And so one of the things maybe that we should be looking at is how do we centralize a Homeland Security kind of focus on unmanned systems and how we protect all our infrastructure, airports, the energy system, our electricity, our grid, all of that is vulnerable. And so, that's all I have to say, and I'll yield my time back. And I recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Diaz-Esposito.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Swenson, I know it was discussed earlier, and I wish some others on the other side were here to listen, because sometimes when we talk about Russia, China, and Iran, we're referred to as fearmongers. But the proliferation of drone technology from foreign adversaries like Russia, like China, like Iran, has impacted conflicts across the globe. What is the...
By the way, this has been a big, a lot of people sort of mock this idea, Chinese, Russian, and Iranian drones. Again, this is something we've been talking about for at least the better part of the year. When I first heard it, I was like, that is dumb. But from what we've shown and what we've reported here and what we've seen, it's clear that these three countries are obviously enemies of the United States. They collaborate, and they're not flying the drones from Iran. They're not flying the drones from Russia. They're not flying the drones from China. They are literally infiltrating and sending people here. Those drone systems, in some cases, are being built and put together here, and they're being flown from here. Sometimes they are launched from incoming ships and then landing on outgoing ships. There are a lot of ways to get drones, and also some drones, again, have 20, 30-hour flight times. Really, really, really advanced drones. There are nuclear drones out there that never land. But those are not the drones we're talking about in this case. The applications are endless. And so the idea that these three countries can come together and individually and collaboratively infiltrate the United States security system and cause confusion and harm with cheap tech that updates, again, the idea of jamming these things is a decade old.
The risk of such technology being transferred or replicated by domestic actors in the United States or by transnational criminal organizations across our borders, and how can we disrupt the supply chain?
Well, the risk is 100%. I mean, it's if it hasn't happened already, I'm sure it has, but if it hasn't, it's about
definitely has.
Right. How do we mitigate it is again, that this is the elephant in the room. And I think the only way to mitigate these kinds of threats is to out-innovate the threat itself. This is something that we've been traditionally good at. It's something we have the technical know-how and the capacity to do. But right now we have not opened the gates. We have not gotten our juices flowing, as I say, to address these threats and out-innovate the threat.
Thank you. I know we have to go vote, so I'm going to make this quick. But Mr. Baumgartner, just last month, a Tennessee man was arrested for plotting to use a drone carrying an explosive to destroy a Nashville power substation. We know that there have been additional incidents of suspicious drone activity near substations. And I think this is critically important, especially in the time that we're in where there is this big push for alternate energy sources, whether it's battery storage, whether it's wind storage, without really doing the work to make sure that we can protect these assets. In addition to cyber concerns, what physical security risks do drones pose to energy sector assets?
A great question. I think payloads are obviously, as witnessed in the Tennessee case, but you could simply ram a drone into some of our infrastructure. And we do take a defense in-depth approach and try to add shielding and obfuscate certain targets. But on top of that, you could also see a situation, and we've seen published cases where they've actually used drones to enable a cyber intrusion as well.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
There you go.
Thank you, gentlemen from New York. I thank all the witnesses for the valuable testimony and the members for their questions. The members of the subcommittee
Real
may have
quick, so you've got ramming drones, you've got jamming and hacking drones, you've got drone swarms, you've got biological swarms, you've got payload sending drones. I mean, there are drones that mimic drones. It's crazy.
Additional questions for the witnesses, and we would ask the witnesses to respond to these in writing. Pursuant to Committee Rule 7D, the hearing record will be held open for 10 days. Without objection, this subcommittee stands adjourned.
And there we go. So that's it. So, okay. There's a lot to cover. We're going to get to it as much as we can. I guess we'll start here. What is going on in Jersey? What is happening? Here's what we know as of right now. If there have been so many drones reported, they're supposedly coming in and out of the water. They're chasing, like we heard here, Coast Guard boats. They're everywhere. But the fact is that local law enforcement hasn't filmed any of it on their sensors or camera systems. They haven't, none of these drones have diverted flights or had the FAA stopped flights coming in and out of Jersey. A lot of people, from the footage that I've seen, first of all, everything's at night. So it's very difficult to get any sort of clarity or sense of where you're at from all of these videos. They're all dark. That's the first issue I have with a lot of these things. The second thing is that the ones that have been clear have been clearly either commercial airplane traffic or normal, very plausibly normal commercial drones. Now, there are things that do make me go, and that is that the state of New Jersey has been put on not like a state emergency, but it's like the next step down from a state emergency. They are taking this thing seriously. So on some level, they're taking it seriously, but I don't know if it's because they're reacting to the constituency going, oh my God, there's drones in my backyard. Oh my God, I see them everywhere. And really, they're just commercial flight traffic. because so far that's all we've got. That's all we've got. And let's just reference some of these bookmarks that I've got here to sort of back up what I'm saying. So this is a perfect example. This video, I came across it this morning, and schmucks like Chupacabra were sharing this as if this was a real UFO over LaGuardia in New York City. And very shortly after this was put out, there was it was flagged for bad information, and it says here that the readers added context to this, that the video shows commercial aircraft on approach to a runway. Landing lights and strobes are clearly visible at the 27-second mark. One of the aircraft lands on the runway. Look at this. And this is being used as drones over New York and Jersey. It's getting stupid. Stephen Greenstreet puts here, this video shows where Monmouth County, New Jersey residents are reporting drones, the big yellow blobs. And as if you notice, okay, when you overlay the actual flight paths of normal air traffic, it goes right over the yellow blobs. Like, it's not, this isn't, very difficult to figure out. I feel like a couple of things might have happened here. That there were some drones that definitely looked strange on some level, and that caused a cascade and a momentum of reports of drones everywhere, and people taking, like this one here. Well, no, this was a Chinese spy balloon. Let me see. There's, we went over these. Yeah, I don't have them in my current bookmarks. But like here's a perfect one that Chupacabra shared. Okay, this is not a plane. This video was taken last night in Neptune, New Jersey. What the fuck is going on? It's gotta be alien, right? It's gotta be, what could it be? So let's take a look at this. We'll put up the sound too. Great, so there's no sound to it. Wonderful. So we see this thing take off straight up, or at least it appears that way. We can't really tell because it's dark. Like only the street is lit, and then it starts to fly over this person holding the camera, and there is clearly a red blinking FAA flight light connected to this thing. And if this was the enemy, if this was aliens, why the fuck would they tell everyone in the world, hey, here's where I'm at, here's the light that I've got indicating that I'm a plane? And someone look at this and go, oh my God, it's triangle shaped. Yeah, the wings of a plane are triangle shaped, and even the fucking tips of the wings here light up. Look at that, plop plop, right there. It's a fucking plane, and this asshole is sharing it as if this is a fucking UFO. Like this, there's no sound. There's no sound because it's a fucking jet flying right over this idiot that posted this online for morons like you to pick up and share and add to the hysteria, add to the confusion, add to people calling their fucking lawmakers and going, oh my God, I saw a drone outside. We showed on Monday that in New Jersey, during COVID, when the first Monday Night Football game came back and the fucking Goodyear blimp showed up over the stadium, the entire New Jersey Turnpike came to a stop because they thought they were looking at a mothership. Like, that's real. So this idea of mass hysteria, mass misidentification is most likely what is going on. But then there are elements to this, like I said, the state of New Jersey basically declaring a state of emergency. There are reports, I don't see them anywhere. I haven't seen a sheriff. I've seen the governor, but I don't think the governor has seen these things with his own eyes. And again, I wouldn't trust the governor even if he had. Like, if there are more than enough police helicopters in the state of New Jersey that have FLIR, infrared, IR systems on their helicopters, you know, those police chases that happen at night, and they've got all of those different sensor systems to pick up what they're looking at. Yeah, they have those in Jersey too. Like, if we saw a FLIR footage of one of these drones and it looked fucking weird, and it's from a law enforcement camera with eyewitnesses, not only from the ground, but from the helicopter, yeah, then I could be like, shit, the fuck, what's going on? At this point, I think you have to lean toward this is just hysteria and stupid people trying to make an industry out of other stupid people spreading bullshit and not giving context. It's easy to do this. This is easy pickings. Easy fucking pickings to do shit like this. And it's infuriating for guys like me. This just fucking, it's so cringe. It's so bottom. It lowers the bar beneath the mud. Because it takes you to a timeline that he wants money to make better and improve. Oh, I got Danny Jones that gives me money to make the UFO timeline, but there's nobody here sponsoring the UFO timeline. I literally heard that today. And then he shares shit like this and pretends that he's not part of the problem, that he's a solution. He's a leader. He's a thought innovator. Like, give me a fucking break. If you follow this guy, you co-host with this guy, like, you're a joke. You're a joke. You're part of the problem. You're part of the problem. Fuck, dude. It's so insulting that shit like this gets shared. Now, something that looks, I don't know. Again, I don't know if this is real. But if this is real, this could be directly linked to Tim Burchett. And it's true. I mean, it seems like this footage is real. I'd like to know where it comes from. It says drone hunter here at the bottom. It's clearly got a filter on it. I'm not sure what type of gun is being used in this clip, but this came from Jeremy McGowan. It says, hey, Mr. Tim Burchett, this is 100% on you. You snarkily suggested people shoot down drones. Well, they are doing that, and someone is going to get killed. When a stray bullet goes through the bedroom of a window and a sleeping child and kills them, I hope... Why does it do that? Dude, I hate Twitter now when it does that. You open the rest of the tweet and it just goes to the right side of the screen. I hope you rot in grief. You're an elected representative with global media reach and your words have consequences. Get on your soapbox and retract, apologize, and discourage this absolutely ignorant and dangerous behavior. You're an absolute moron and do not deserve the seat in which your ass is planted. And I couldn't agree more. But let's listen and watch this clip. Holy shit. Holy shit. So, wow, dude. So you can't see the people who are shooting this gun. They're not saying anything, but you can hear it loading. It sounds like a real weapon. But I don't know. I don't know if this is edited or what. But it seems like they're shooting at something that has FAA lights on it. If this is real, This is absolute fucking insanity. Jesus, dude. I should get the sneezing monkey on as a guest. Who's the sneezing monkey? Dude, this is like a regular. I don't know if this is real. Maybe. But I mean, why is nobody coming out and going, hey, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, this seems like a very quiet, peaceful neighborhood. This is not like a farm or something. This is like a straight up neighborhood. That house looks like New England or something, and they're shooting an AK-47. I don't know, man. I don't know if this is real, dude. There's power lines and everything. I don't know. Damn, dude, that is crazy if this is real. Drone hunter. Dude, can someone confirm if this is Jersey? I feel like somebody should be able to confirm. I don't know, man. I don't know if that's real, dude. The way that the trail of the bullets, I don't know. Look, he's kind of like shooting through. I don't think it's real. Look how these bullets are going through this. Yeah, look at this one bullet. This is not making sense. See, like it's like first they're going this. I can't like first these lights are going this way. And then all of a sudden they appear here. I don't know, man. I don't know. This, I guess it does go off that way. I don't know, something about this feels fake right here, especially when it's going across the power lines. Something. Yeah, this is not. I think this is fake. I think it's fake. I'm going to call this. What do you guys think? I can confirm it's fake. Tactical Pickle says. Yep. Yeah, I think we're going to tell McGowan. I think this is fake. Yep. Yep. All right. I'll delete that post. Can't yell at somebody for something that hasn't happened. But if it does happen, it definitely would be his fault. And he definitely did say those things. But that video in particular is not real. So, yeah, we take it down. Yeah, the fact that it's going through these power lines and it doesn't hit one is wild. I mean, just the aim, it would just be crazy. I think it's just a superimposed thing. And It's the wind, like the wind. Yeah. Yeah, this isn't real. It's good. It's a good one. It's a good fake. It's a pretty damn good one. It's the power lines that, if there weren't power lines in the way, this would be pretty difficult to sort of determine. Video goes, look at that. The video goes dark here and then comes backwards. It appears, unless that's some sort of compression. But you see that? Yeah, that's fake. All right. Well, hey, we figured it out. Okay. Let's see here. So this idea of all of this hysteria, right? So that's culprit number one, just straight up hysteria. I think though that there might, if my far out there theory, let's just say for a moment, and we know this to be true, that Iran, China, and Russia do have drone systems that infiltrate not only our borders, but they'll infiltrate our nation through the coastlines and through our shipping ports. And they also infiltrate through just straight up, just like 9/11 terrorists did. A lot of illegal immigration that happens in this country, it's just simply people who take a flight here and they overstay their visas and they stay here sometimes for 20, 30, 40 years. They have a whole family. They work. Like, it's wild. Like, it's wild. But a lot of people come here that way. And yeah, so the idea that maybe, just maybe, one of these advanced fiber optic drone systems was launched over New Jersey. Maybe not just one, maybe multiple were launched over New Jersey. And maybe they did go over some sensitive infrastructure areas. And maybe they weren't able to be taken down by local law enforcement. Would it be met with, the idea of all of these guys, especially from the FBI and Border Patrol and the lawyer, being like, we don't know what it is. Like, that to me is not a good enough answer. I think they must have an idea of who and what it is. Could it be that the reason the answer is we don't know who or what it is because it is our tech? It is our tech. And there's a lot of reasons why. First of all, we don't want to reveal that it's us. We've spoken so many times, like it's a counter to a counter to a counter. We go back to the example of the Hiroshima bomb being a message to the world, like, hey, we're in charge. And I think when and if these drone systems that the United States does have, if and when they are implemented, I think it is a message to our enemies. Hey, this is what we got. This is just a glimpse of what we got. We're still in charge here. We're still the big boys on the block. We outspend you on this shit 15, 20 times more than your entire worth as a nation every year. I think, is it possible that local law enforcement, even normal citizens, got a glimpse of some of these drone systems? Because again, we're only getting reports. I don't have any factual evidence, but when you get reports of people saying, yeah, I tried to launch my drone, but my drone all of a sudden died, or when I got it up there, it was sent down, or when I tried to take pictures of the other drone, it jammed my camera systems. That's sophisticated stuff. And if that's our enemies doing that, interesting. But I don't know if our enemies would care if normal, everyday Americans, I think our enemies would want their systems to be taken, have pictures taken of them so that normal average citizens go, oh my God, look, the Iranians are here or the Russians are here. They're in our airspace. Like, that'd be a huge win for any one of those nations. If these drones could be directly linked, because it shows, hey, you're vulnerable. You're really vulnerable. Alchemist with a $10 donation. Appreciate it. Says, thank you for being so level-headed, bro. I appreciate it. Thank you for the donation. That's we're gonna, that's what we try and do around here. Just keep it level-headed. But yeah, anyway, I appreciate the donation. Seriously. But yeah, so like this idea, like our tech, it makes sense that nobody has answers if it's our tech. It makes sense if local citizens are trying to get pictures of it and it's getting jammed. It's our tech. That makes sense to me, right? That's my theory. And it would also give a good reason as to why Defense Press Secretary Kirby in these press conferences has been like, yeah, we don't know what it is. And as far as we know, there's not a problem because the FAA hasn't come to us. Local law enforcement hasn't come to us. We hear the same reports, but as far as we know right now, none of those things can be confirmed. Does that mean he's telling the truth? Absolutely not. But again, we don't have any hard evidence of things. All we got is shitty videos of clearly airplanes. So I think this could be a display of our tech for one of two reasons. The first is to simply try it out, and also maybe send a message to our enemies, but I don't know if they would do that here. And then the only other reason I could think of is there was a reason they needed to be brought out. And that maybe those drone systems actually took care of a bigger problem and they don't want you to know what that problem was. Therefore, all of the secrecy behind it. But I don't know. I don't know. There's no evidence of that either. What there is evidence of is people misidentifying things. A lot. But what's also evident is that there, legislatively speaking, we learned after watching this 2-hour hearing that they're looking to renew legislation that gives them more money and more resources to chase this drone issue. And that expires on the 20th of December, which is 8 days from now, 7 days from now. What better way to get interest in renewing that than maybe test flying some drones in New Jersey and getting hysteria going and interest in, hey, this is going to be a problem. Maybe they see that funding is going to be tight and they want to secure it before other things, a different administration comes into place, and they want to secure this funding right now. I don't know. But the timing is really, really, for me, suspect. It's a little sus. It's definitely convenient. At the very best, it's convenient. At the very worst, it's suspect. Or nefarious. Like it's, the idea that you're flying top secret tech over the United States to sort of kickstart funding for an actual thing we need funding for, a problem that, as you heard from lawmakers, like they've already stopped attempts at people sending explosive payloads on a drone to a power plant. And I can't remember the other spot that they named, but you've had lawmakers from California and Miami. Miami's getting the World Cup in a few years. and they're worried. Miami has Super Bowls all the time. California, same thing. We get the Super Bowl now. Now we have a state-of-the-art stadium, and we also, the Olympics are coming. Like, that's going to be massive. And a city that is congested as Los Angeles is, and then you add the Olympics on top of it for almost basically 3 weeks. It's going to be a nightmare to get around this city when the Olympics are here. And if there's an emergency, or if there's a time to take advantage of a crumbling infrastructure, it would be during the Los Angeles Olympics. You have 3 or 4 different, for fuck's sake, just this last year, a 100-foot section of the I-10 caught fire, and it was shut down for a week, and it was absolute chaos. They thought that they were going to have to shut it down for 8 months. If that had been just a little bit worse, it would have brought this city to its knees. And that's just one section of road in this city. Dude, it's gonna get ugly. It's gonna get ugly, but it's also super scary. Like, you really have to think about this in a much bigger. This is not about aliens. It never has been. It has been about this. This has been the issue. It's not the whole time, not for the last 8 decades, but for the last, since 2017, publicly, this has been an issue. But I think this issue specifically dates back to the early 2000s. And it's just now publicly catching wind. And because it seems like, from what these guys are saying on the other side, okay, from the FBI, from border security, from a legal perspective, and even a philosophical perspective, is we are really behind on being able to prevent the next 9/11. But imagine, like, I think of South Park, 9/11 times 100. Like, if you had, imagine one day where you had an event like 9/11, but you had it happen in New York, Maryland, Miami, Los Angeles, Portland, Chicago, major shipping ports, major electrical grid points, Hoover Dam. Like, there are so many, we are so ill prepared. Because there's so many reasons. Don't want to get political, but we are very ill prepared for this problem. And that clearly shows by the concern of the lawmakers, and not just the lawmakers, but the guys who are looking at the issue. But I think they're covering the ass of, well, not only themselves, but the people above them. They're being the meat shields for having the lack of answers on this issue. Here, this is from the Department of Homeland Security about the drone sightings. So this is from DHS. We have no evidence at this time that the reported drone sightings pose a national security or public safety threat or have any foreign nexus. The FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and federal partners, in close coordination with the New Jersey State Police, continue to deploy personnel and technology to investigate the situation and confirm whether the reported drone flights are actually drones or are instead manned aircraft or otherwise inaccurate sightings. Historically, we have experienced cases of mistaken identity where reported drones are, in fact, manned aircraft or facilities. We are supporting local law enforcement in New Jersey with numerous detection methods, but have not corroborated any of the reported visual sightings with electronic detection. To the contrary, upon review of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft operating lawfully. There are no reported or confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace. We take seriously the threat that can be posed by unmanned aircraft systems, which is why law enforcement and other agencies continue to support New Jersey and investigate the reports. To be clear, they have uncovered no such malicious activity or intent at this stage. While there is no known malicious activity occurring in New Jersey, the reported sightings there do, however, highlight the insufficiency of current authorities. And that's from the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI. And again, don't have to trust everything that these guys say, but if they are telling you that they are in close coordination with the New Jersey State Police Departments. And I'm telling you right now, if New Jersey felt like they were not, they would make it known, and they haven't. And so that's why I think a lot of this is just, yep. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. Average Chris just posted, breaking viral video of man shooting at drone is fake. Once again, Think Tank has been caught posting an edited video of someone shooting at a drone. I wrote back to Chris, I'm like, I literally just broke down that it was fake on my show live right now. Oh my God, it's so funny. Dude, so funny. But yeah, man, I mean, like, I think the timing of this hearing and the timing of these drone sightings is right before this budget ends. Before like they're asking for the renewal of this budget and of this office and of these capabilities. I mean, I don't know, man. I think everybody's putting their hands up and going, we didn't start the fire. It was only burning as the world keeps turning. Like, I don't know, man. And the timing of it is very, very strange. But as of right now, there has been not one credible fucking video that has been put out there that lends to any of this. I mean, this right here, I don't even want to play this whole clip, but we'll play a little bit of it.
Going to happen next.
So let's this is like one of the cousin brothers over there at third phase of Moon that Alien Girl just absolutely loves. These guys are pitching this idea that this is a false flag alien invasion to get funding for off-world technologies. It's absolutely stupid, but that's their theory. But let's listen to some of this here.
Off with Dr. Stephen Greer. Welcome. And what's going on with these drones? Everybody wants to get your opinion.
Well, some backstory on that. These all began some months ago after a team of high-level black site defectors decided that they would come forward between now and early January with all the evidence and information from 6 different black sites that have been involved in shooting down the ET craft, the reverse engineering of them, the ET bodies, and the man-made, what they call ATs, which is advanced technology, which are the man-made UFOs, which are most of what people see.
Man-made UFOs. I guess that's what this is, a man-made UFO. The airplane here. The clearly fucking airplane here. Okay, go on.
Now, of course, the covert transnational corrupt organization running covert UFO UAP programs knows this. And of course, they can monitor everything with or without an encrypted block. And they are now launching what we had predicted in the late 1990s, and that is a series of diversionary false flag events to confuse the public and the politicians and the Pentagon as to what these UAPs are. So the whole launch of the drones that you're seeing in the United Kingdom, those started after I got back from the United Kingdom, providing briefings to the senior leadership.
Oh, give me a fucking break.
About
give me a break.
Emerging disclosure.
Look at
That
all
will be
this
the
shit.
biggest
All of this shit
event
is
in,
airplanes.
modern human history, frankly. The people coming forward are not secondhand or even minor firsthand. These are operators assigned to special forces who have now risen up to a senior position at these key black sites, and they will be unmasked. They will be named. They will have the evidence. They will have the proof. And that's all happening in the next 30 days or so. I am telling you this because it is imminent. It's why I've been on a tour all over the world meeting with senior officials in the U.S. government, the incoming administration, the current leaders in the House and the Senate. In fact, I just got back from Washington last night. So that is what is happening. The drones are a predictable launch of a diversionary and a confusing event. They're certainly not extraterrestrial or NHI. The pop culture now is non-human intelligence term, NHI craft. It's clear that they're able to have assets that are ground-based or in STIFs, subterranean facilities, or what some people call DUMBs, deep underground military bases, where they can launch these sort of objects and create all kinds of confusion and alarm and panic. This is now breaking all into the mainstream news, just as this group is pivoting to disclose the facts and the real information. So this is a PSYOP, psychological warfare operation. We predicted it. We've been predicting it for 25 years. If you read my paper that I wrote in 1999, it's on our website, drstephengreer.com, and it states very pointedly that the actors who are keeping this secret will take the momentum of disclosure and try to turn it into an alien invasion scenario, a good versus bad alien scenario, a way to keep war running all over the world, and also aggrandize the military industrial complex with trillions of dollars in new spending to create a countermeasure to the alien threat. So we know this was the plan that was hatched in 1953 or so.
But here's the thing, is you don't need aliens to get that $1 trillion budget. You don't. The idea of this has already prompted Congress already to be like, okay, let's renew this fucking thing. Let's spend more money. Let's get you more resources. Already they want to spend more money, and it has nothing to do with aliens. They are more scared of for their cities, for their constituents, for the people that are going to events in their towns and vacationing and spending, very sought after tourist dollars. That's what they're concerned about. They're not concerned about fucking aliens or a false flag narrative or any of this bullshit Stephen Greer is pushing. They're concerned with real threats from real drones and with real people getting hurt. And that alone, I think, does deserve $1 trillion budget. Like it does. If anything deserves it, it's that. Like it used to be, the United States was impervious to attacks because of the oceans that are between us and these countries, and the closest that we've had has been Pearl Harbor, and obviously the American-British War. But since then, it hasn't been an issue. With the advancement and the cost of these drone systems, that changes everything. You can now wage war in this country in a very cost-effective, cheap way that causes a lot of chaos, confusion, disruption, and it puts in civil discourse. It creates, like, man, imagine if that shipping container in Baltimore that hit that bridge that has caused all sorts of issues in shipping. Imagine if that was caused by a terrorist drone or attack, or imagine if all of the bridges in Baltimore were taken out at the same time in the exact same way. Like how that would affect our groceries and our way of life would be immense, to a point where it would cause a lot of problems. And so, it's not Red Dawn. They're not coming in parachutes and in boats and in submarines. They are coming with drone systems, and they're coming to create chaos and confusion and attack our most vulnerable infrastructure points, which are insanely vulnerable. And so that's what I think is happening with this whole drone flap, this UAP flap, or whatever you guys want to call it. I'll call it a lot of it seems like created confusion. And that created confusion might simply be to get the budget reapproved and money flowing in the right direction, because they do see another 9/11 coming, and they don't want to be the lawmakers who were running the ship while something like that went down. And God forbid it's even worse. I mean, dude, the scenario that these guys are painting, the way the game has changed is monumental. Just absolutely monumental. And so, yeah, so those are my thoughts, you guys. I think be very, very, very careful with online videos and online profits of profit and people, playing, doing the UAP fucking grifter dance. It's very easy to see if you just pay attention and listen to what they do and what they say versus what they do. It's very, very easy to see. They push conspiracy theories in certain areas, and then certain areas they seem like reasonable, rational people. But they do that rational part to attract the rational people, and then they hit them every once in a while with the absolute absurdities. To continue mystery, to continue confusion, to propagate bullshit, to propagate hysteria, and just be careful. Be careful out there. But anyway, you guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. For me, this was a fun show. I love digging deep into the people that are at these hearings. I'm sure in the coming months, we're probably going to get some more hearings like this, especially if these drones keep popping up and people get better videos or can confirm these things a little better. I think this is going to be a conversation going forward. Complicit with a 251 donation says Hoaxers United on the Moon, featuring Billy Griffson docu. And then complicit with another dono says UAP's PISA closure. I'm pretty sure I see where you're going with this one. I appreciate it, dude. Thanks for the donations. Thank you, everyone who was in the chat. Our member Dana Shadell, Complicit B. Baker, who was on the road. I'm glad we were able to entertain you. If you guys are listening on podcast, this will be a multi-part podcast, so it should be uploaded here in the next few months. Want to give another shout out to Alchemist372 for the $10 donor earlier today. Appreciate it. You guys' donations are great. They make me feel good, and they help to keep the lights on here, so I appreciate it. With that said, we'll see if we see you on Monday. Let's see what happens this weekend. If not, again, ring the bell, hit the like button. That way you're notified every time we go live. Definitely hit the like button. That's huge now in the algorithm. Share the show. Again, that goes far in making sure that the lights stay on. Just so you guys know, I want to make an announcement also. In the coming week or so here, we're going to be having a regular guest co-host on the show. It'll be Steve Long. I'm super excited about this. Steve brings a lot of history, research, information, and I think having him to bounce off some of the things I'm saying, either to confirm or even disagree with what I'm saying. I think he's a really level head, but loves the UFO discussion, but also hates the bullshit aspect of it. So I'm really looking forward to having Steve on the show. I was going to have him on today, but this one was just a super long show. I can't put anyone through this. It's just too long. I wanted to go through every minute of this hearing and talk about it with you guys and give you guys my theories and my thoughts. And just also just sit back and just see how this community has grossly monetized this stuff. It's all of you are just fucking gross. You're fucking gross. Anyway, have a great weekend, you guys. Yeah, thanks for helping raise the bar and tuning in to another episode of Lou Ruse. We'll see you guys later. Have a great night. Peace out.